Right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Scio Township Planning Commission for August 14th, 2023. And if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Commissioner Chang, please.
Okay, Commissioner Moore.
Present.
Commissioner Chang, present. Commissioner Human.
Present.
Commissioner Hyde.
Present.
And Commissioner Culbertson.
Present.
All right, we have a quorum.
Ready. And adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions, revisions?
I move adoption of the agenda.
Moved by Commissioner Moore, supported by Commissioner Hyde to adopt the agenda as posted. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. It is adopted as posted. Communications and correspondence. There was an uploaded correspondence from Mr. Reiser, and also we will be adding the correspondence that Bob Pattinson forwarded regarding Heritage Woods. Any other correspondence? All right, moving on, we have no presentations this evening, so we'll continue on to public comment. And this is the time when people would like to address the Planning Commission on matters which are not on the public hearing portion of the agenda. So that would be anything except the Ruth Johnson zoning request or the Honey Creek Business Park. Then they have their presentation or statement shall be limited to 3 minutes, except if you represent an organization, and you should have 5 minutes to address the commission. We ask that you come forward and sign in. We start with folks that are here and then move online. So if there's anyone present that would like to address the Planning Commission on anything that is not the 2 public hearings for this evening. Welcome.
Well, I'll sign in first, then I'll talk.
Okay.
My name is Dave Spicer. I reside at 525 Baker Road, right in front of the Heritage Woods. Project's gonna go in. Well, I am still lost for words as to why the Planning Commission would allow the rezoning of agriculture to PUD. My understanding is that Scio was trying to save our open space. Man, was I so wrong. Also, do you remember back when MDOT said there must be a boulevard agreement between the developer and the neighbors to the south before a permit would be issued? That all changed when the legal counsel, Alan Green from Heritage Woods, got in touch with Michigan's Assistant Attorney General. Our legal counsel got the pages from the Freedom of Information Act, but nothing was there on their conversation. I wish I knew what was said in that conversation. Thank you, because they changed it.
Right, thank you, Mr. Spicer. Anyone else present wishing to address the Planning Commission? All right, we'll move to our public online.
Okay. There is some public online. First with their hand up is Pam Boyd. So Pam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Doug. Good evening. Pam Boyd, a well-informed Scio resident, Scio Community Newsletter. I want to thank this commission for last Thursday's PC, BOT, and DDA joint meeting. However, 2 questions came to mind during that meeting that I didn't hear addressed. One, if the energy goal is to be an electrified township, and let's say we have more than 50% of cars being electric, how does this play into your Jackson Boulevard ideas going forward? Some of the discussion included the noise of vehicles on the boulevard being too loud for the walkers you hope will populate the sidewalks along the boulevard. Electric cars would make for a quieter roadway. Would there be a need to make some of the suggested changes to the boulevard if electric vehicles solve that problem? Of course, adding in safe sidewalks would still be a benefit. I heard a few comments about creating picnic areas to encourage residents to eat outside in good weather. That would be awesome, but because most people who work in Scio have a specific lunch period, a drive-through might be a better option for a quick pickup, especially with restaurants having pre-order apps. More time to spend outdoors, less time to pick up your food. I see drive-throughs as still being a benefit to electric vehicle owners. We are a community that straddles two highways, and we logically have in our master plan the category of mixed-use highway commercial to draw in travelers from those highways. Those commercial businesses also supply jobs and wares to local residents. We have one gateway into Scio Township that has 3 gas stations that cater to semi-truck traffic. Because of the highway gateways into Scio Township, we shouldn't underestimate the income and benefits those travelers bring to Scio Township. Case in point, I was in a unique position about 2 years ago to survey the patrons leaving uptown Coney Island on a Saturday morning. If I remember correctly, 80% of those who came for breakfast that morning were not Scio residents. The second question I have is, Scio isn't a self-contained bubble. We are greatly affected by outside travelers. How much effort has anyone done to survey where traffic comes from and how it interacts with Scio Township businesses at various times of the day? It seems to me that if you create a boulevard for Scio residents only, you will be creating unintended consequences. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Next.
There are no additional hands up.
Move to close public
We got
hearing.
one, we got one. Okay, there's Jonathan Greenberg. You have the floor.
Hey, good evening. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, when the Planning Commission approves a PUD, ultimately, who's responsible for ensuring that the PUD meets Scio Township's code? I'm just asking because I have an issue I need to address, and I was hoping that the Planning Commission knew that answer.
Just a clarifying question, because the PUD is zoning, so your question is who enforces our zoning? As
Yeah.
far as what the
Yeah.
compliance with the PUD documents?
Enforcement now, but who approves zoning for the township, plots and stuff like that? So like when somebody builds a house, who approves that plan
Okay.
to ensure that it meets the ordinances of Scio Township?
Mhm. All
I'm
right.
just wondering
And
if you
yeah, I think we can address that. Doug, do you want to discuss the zoning compliance?
Yeah, all homes are applied for at Scio Township, and they have to apply for zoning compliance. They are then checked for setbacks, building height, location. If a developer
Who checks setbacks? That's the main one I'm interested in. Who checks the setbacks?
I currently do. That's a relatively new task that I've been doing, but that's either it's a township staff person. If not me, it's a township staff person.
I'm just curious because I have a setback of 5 feet, obviously, for a driveway, and there's a home that built a driveway. Somebody approved it a foot off my property line. So I'm just trying to figure out what the next steps are, because that's a problem. But we don't need to take up any more time here. I appreciate you acknowledging the responsibility, Doug. I'll follow up. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, anyone else?
Second here. No, no new hands have come up.
Okay. Entertain a motion to.
Move to close public comment.
Moved by Commissioner Moore and supported by Commissioner Hyde. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Public comment is closed at 7:11. All right, then we're going to move on to our scheduled public hearings this evening. And the first one is OA number 23001, Ruth Johnson rezoning request. And just to give people an idea of how we conduct our public hearings, first we hear from the applicant or the petitioner to present their project. We ask for clarifying questions from the planning commissioners. We hear from our planning consultant, our engineering consultants, and then we open it up to a public in this room and also online. Following that, the planning commission can deliberate or choose to postpone deliberation on that public hearing. So with that, I will open the public hearing for 23001 Ruth Johnson rezoning request at 7:13.
Ready for me?
Yes.
All right, so it's pretty straightforward. My name's Joe Maynard, with Washington Engineering, representing the owner, who's not present today. They're on vacation. Just a quick background on this parcel. It is actually a landlocked parcel of land. It was done when the I-94 expressway went through. It was captured by eminent domain and has been left landlocked parcel for some time. Currently, there is an easement within the Encore Baker Road project to gain access to this property. We're seeking rezoning to be basically consistent with the master plan, but there are currently no plans to move forward with this, other than getting it rezoned at this time.
Any questions of fact? Yes,
I do have
Commissioner Hyde.
You said that there's an easement to get access, and that comes off of the same road easement that the other residences?
No, actually, it's a separate, it's within the drive lanes of the Heritage Woods project. There is a separate easement cutting between two homes that goes down to the south to this parcel of land. It's a 12-foot wide access easement.
And it comes through from the residences that are along the access road, or is it how, I don't quite get how they get it in here.
So if you imagine there's Heritage Woods Boulevard that runs straight into the property.
You don't have a map.
I don't have a map, sorry. I didn't think that was gonna come up, but
Well, I can't see how it's gonna get any better to be rezoned. If it's landlocked, it's landlocked, but you said that there's an easement.
there is an easement. And it's recorded within the master deed of that project. For-
So people come on that, which I believe is the state right of way. They come off of Baker Road onto the state right of way. And then you're saying there's an easement off of that?
No, there's an easement within the Heritage Woods
Over the
project.
Heritage Woods
Yes.
project.
And it's only a 12-foot wide access easement. It's not meant for driveway cars or anything like that. It's just to get access to the property. So
And that was just created with this development?
that was created with, it was created not with this development, no.
No, with the Heritage Woods.
Yes, it was set up with
Okay.
that, yes.
Because I was like, how do all the other residents? So, okay, good. Well, that answers my question about being landlocked.
Any other questions of fact? We'll move to Carlisle Wortman.
Okay, this is as was mentioned, a rezoning application going from R1 single family residential to C3 highway commercial. The project, as has been already discussed, is currently landlocked for any use, even if it's R1 uses. So things we look at in a rezoning are what's going on around the property with regard to zoning and land use. Subject property is shown on the aerial photograph on page 2 of our report. South of the property is the I-94 freeway. North of the property is R1 single-family residential zoning. East of the subject property is zoned R1. It's kind of a piece of the same property that's north of the site. And west of the subject property is PUD, which is the recently approved Heritage Woods Senior Living Project. Findings of fact, the property is surrounded by R1 single-family zoning to the northeast and the Heritage Woods Senior PUD project to the west and immediately adjacent to I-94 to the south. One of the main things we look at in rezoning is what the master plan is calling for the site to be. And as you can see from page 3 of our review, this whole kind of section of the township is currently master planned for C3 highway commercial uses. Kind of all 4 corners of the I-94 Baker Road interchange have that master plan designation. This site, while odd and landlocked, is currently master planned C3 highway commercial. So the finding of fact here is a subject rezoning from R1 single family residential to C3 highway commercial coincides with the township master plan designation of mixed use highway commercial, future land use classification. With regard to natural resources, there are areas of mature trees on site. We do not find evidence of a wetland, or excuse me, wetlands or a floodplain on the property. As of right now, nothing, even if rezoned, rezoning in and of itself doesn't allow the applicant to do anything with the property other than submit additional plans. This is not going to allow them to start construction. If rezoned, the applicant would have to come back before us with a site plan of whatever it is they're proposing. And at that point, we would, of course, have to deal with access. And so that's when we would kind of get into some of these development questions about how it would be developed in the future. With regard to the development potential related to my previous comments, the project, they're proposing it as C3. We've listed some of the uses that are permitted and conditional within the C3 zoning district. Those range from things that are permitted like vehicle, we call a vehicle filling station, that'd be a gas station, vehicle wash, vehicle repair, lodging, restaurants, things like that. Additional uses, truck stops, which we have in that location, indoor recreational use, fast food and carry-out restaurants, which allows drive-throughs, large-scale retail establishments, and then accessory things like wastewater utility systems. So these are the uses. The applicant doesn't have a specific use proposed. They're certainly, and if they do, they're not proposing anything to us at this point. So in those kinds of cases, when someone's requesting a rezoning, we have to look at all of the uses that could occur here and determine if we believe those, would be acceptable in this location. And so that's why we list out everything in this case. So the finding of fact, the uses will be limited to the permitted or conditional uses within the C3 highway commercial zoning district. So everyone's clear on that's what could happen here. Traffic impact is very difficult to determine at this point because of the various land uses. The traffic impact study could be wildly different depending on what was being proposed. We will request a traffic impact analysis at the time a development was brought before us, and if the road commission was to require such a study. Our traffic impact analysis, by the way, hinges on whether the road commission requires such a study. That's how our ordinance is written, that we can only get traffic impact analysis if the Washington County Road Commission, if it meets their criteria. With regard to essential facilities and services, the site is not located within the township's water sewer district. well and septic facilities will be required for development of this property as it currently exists. Findings of fact, well and septic connections and stormwater management facilities would be reviewed during the site plan review process. When and if that would occur.
I've read your memo. Are you gonna read the whole thing? Yeah.
Sometimes people want me to. So the rezoning factors, there are 5 rezoning factors in our review. I'm not going to read all of the 5 rezoning factors. However, with regard to finding a fact, the 5 criteria for rezoning have been reviewed and have been found to either not be applicable to the subject rezoning or to the exception. And then our recommendation, based on the comments of this analysis, we recommend approval of the proposed rezoning from R1 single family to C3 highway commercial. And then we list those findings of fact that we believe support that recommendation. Much of this recommendation is based primarily on the master plan for this part of the township, and the fact that this is kind of part of one of those 4 corners of the area that is planned for highway, mixed use highway commercial. So with that, if there's any questions, I can try to address those.
Question, Mr. Hyde.
We heard the discussion about the easement. Could you describe what this easement is and when it came about? Because the only easement I can recall for through Heritage Woods was an easement coming down the east side that was for the pathway across the freeway.
Can you talk a little louder?
Okay, I can speak towards the microphone too. So the pathway easement was the one that was on the east side. Is that the one we're referring to? Or do you know about it?
I don't know, no, this is,
the first you've heard of an easement?
I'm not, if it was on the plan, I'm not saying it's not on the plan.
It's on the plans. I know it is. I did it.
What was the plan? What was the description of the easement?
It's just a 12-foot wide maintenance easement. That's all it is. It's just made for access to get maintenance to the property. That's it.
And it was part of the plan and we approved that. A maintenance easement that allows access to this property that wasn't stated to be that.
Somewhere off Marshall Road.
No, this is on the east side of Heritage Woods, and I assume it crosses the boulevard. Doesn't go
Within
up
the
to the
property.
boulevard?
So the road that cuts east after the boulevard, all the way down to the
So
end.
it crosses the boulevard.
No, it does not cross the boulevard.
It comes off of the circulation from Heritage Woods is what you're saying, I
Off of the
believe.
Circulation.
So Heritage Woods Boulevard goes up. I don't remember the name of the road that goes east at that 4 corner. Goes east towards the highway, right before it turns and goes north. I forget which way is north, south, east, west on this anymore, but
So it comes off a road within Heritage Woods.
yes, but not the boulevard. If it came off the boulevard, it'd have to go through all the neighbors' properties.
Oh,
We
when
don't
it
do
goes
that.
north. Yep.
That has some of the units.
Yep.
Other questions of our consultant?
I have a couple questions.
Yes, go ahead.
On page 3 of your memo, Doug, the second paragraph, you refer to, this category, the highway commercial category, would not be considered within known groundwater recharge areas or within designated wellhead protection areas. So what would be the recharge area?
We have mapping that shows groundwater recharge areas that are generally soil types that are very permeable to water. That water runs through to recharge aquifers. And this is not what according to our mapping, this is not within one of those areas.
Okay, and what is the wellhead protection area?
Wellhead protection areas are areas that are around what would be public wells. So for known draws of public water. And this is not, I think the closest one is up near the city tax.
Okay, and then, in page 4, you talk about the findings of fact, the well and septic connections and storm water management facilities will be reviewed during the site plan review. I was looking at the C3, the statute. It says that this district is to be used only in those areas of the township which are served by public water and sanitary sewer facilities. And this property is not served by public water or sanitary sewer facilities. So, correct me if I'm wrong, by statute, we could not have well septic connections on that.
Yeah, we've run into this.
Because
before.
in a C3, we couldn't have, not that property, I should say.
Yeah,
On a
in a-
C3, you couldn't have septic.
Yeah, typically in C3, we've run into this before, in industrial properties that aren't in sewer, but industrial the same way. And because it was master plan, that designation, we have allowed that zoning to occur, but that would be an issue.
Yeah, that would be against our ordinance. Okay, I understand your answer. I
Yeah,
don't know.
we've done that before,
Okay.
when it was expressly shown, but. we have to discuss.
Just for the record, Commissioner Reiser came in about, I want to say 7:24.
From another meeting, thank you, my apologies.
I have, I don't know if it's a question, but I pulled up the plans that were presented to us, this commission, on November 28th, 2022. And I am struggling to find where the easement is indicated on here.
Not one.
I don't think that's the current set of plans either, though. Current set of plans are dated January.
January, is that what was presented to the board? And that's when we.
Final set approved by the board.
Not that plan. Other questions for?
Sorry,
Probably-
January,
I have
sorry,
a question
January.
for Mr. Maynard.
Yes.
Has there been any coordination with the neighbors to at least get access possibly off of 94 or to, acquire property, to combine properties? Because I'm still not, I'm trying to figure out, you have a 12-foot wide access easement, but that's non-motorized.
You can't get access off 94, that'll never happen.
So, so I guess I'm still kind of
Well,
trying to
one,
figure out if it goes to C3, you can't get vehicular access there.
correct, one thought is if the properties in this area were all zoned, and it would be possibly sold as all grouped together. I mean, that's the basic intent, but.
In other words,
So just taking the first.
You want it
step.
all zone C3 at baby steps. It starts here, then the others want it too. It says, oh, we can only have commercial here,
Maybe, maybe not.
kind
It's
of
up to
like a
them.
domino kind of thing.
It's up to them, so.
Has there been any contact then with the neighbors to combine lots?
Had one discussion, but that was a long time ago, so.
I have a question here. How does this interact with our sign ordinance, i.e. billboards?
Good questions. This doesn't really have an impact on our sign ordinance. We revised the sign ordinance to come up with an I-94 overlay for larger signs. We can't call them off-site signs. We're sued on that and lost. So that's now the I-94 overlay, sign overlay. And the district allows what would in effect be billboards in any zoning district. So whether this could, being that it's A1 has no impact. It could be A1, it could be R1, it could be C3, it could be C2, that has nothing. That doesn't.
Another question?
Finding of fact,
Yeah.
you said that this has not been discussed recently with the neighbors. Did you mean Heritage Woods included in that discussion category? As a branding discussion with the Heritage Woods?
I don't know if they discussed it or
So you don't know whether there's been any recent discussion?
not. Okay, that.
So there's.
Sorry.
Any other questions before we open to? Then, thank you, Commissioner. We'll invite members of the public here who would like to address the planning commission on this rezoning.
Good evening, Kathleen Brandt, Scio resident. Public comments. I noticed the petition for rezoning was submitted by Glazer Way Properties and not by the property owner. How does Glazer Way have standing to petition for rezoning? Does the planning commission have policies and procedures to allow this? I hope to get an answer for that. As a landlocked parcel, there's no way the property can be used for commercial purposes. I might as well say at this point in time.
Airplane, drones.
John, you're taking my.
No, I know,
John, please don't interrupt me.
apologies.
Please don't interrupt me.
My apologies.
I've got a clock. It's not a problem.
I take your point.
For commercial uses, this property requires access to a public road. It doesn't have that. A 12-foot easement is not in compliance with C3 zoning. Unless the business is accomplished via an aerial vehicle, it cannot be used for commercial purposes. C3 highway commercial, you can't get customers there, you can't deliver product there unless you've got a drone or a helicopter or something. I'm very much troubled by Carlisle Wortman recommending approval to rezone this at this time. This is completely inappropriate and premature. As we know, they can't make any changes to the PUD once it's approved. So you can't get any other access. 12 feet easement is not going to get you any kind of commercial access. There's absolutely no reason to rezone this at this point in time. It's totally inappropriate. If I understand correctly, this easement was added after the planning commission approval for the PUD. How can that be? How can an easement be slipped in after the planning commission approved it? There should be absolutely no changes to that plan. This easement was never discussed in any meeting that I attended, whether the planning commission or the board of trustees. This easement stinks to high heaven. There's something is not right in Denmark, as they say. You simply cannot approve this because it's premature. Thank you.
Dave Spicer, South Township resident, 525 Acre Road. Now, as she's saying how this thing stinks, you know who's doing this is Dan Johnson. Dan Johnson is the developer of Heritage Woods. Like she said, how can they sneak that in there like that? I've been to almost every single meeting and I never have ever seen anything that showed that they could come in and off from Heritage Woods. And if they can, then I should be able to, Eugene Kent should be able to. So to me or whatever, it's even worse, it stinks. To me, it's a wormy thing they're trying to do. And I don't trust Dan Johnson. I'm sorry, I don't. I've seen the stuff he's been doing and I just don't trust him, man. I said earlier about how their attorney went ahead, got a hold of the Attorney General. I don't trust those people, man. I really don't. I want to go through one more thing here too. And they talk about the mature trees on a site and there does not appear to be any wetlands there. Now, there is at times running water through a stream location on the east end of the property. It discharges water also from the water tower. At times, it is heavy enough to flood our backyard and to flood Eugene Kent's backyard and front yard. So there is water that's running through there. And actually, I'm sorry, I can't remember the man's name that they got replaced on the, you sit on the corner right there for the trustees, whatever, but I talked to him about my property flooding back there when they drained that water tower over there. Yeah, so he was gonna look into it and find out, and he said they think they haven't figured out, but they won't know until they drain the water tower again sometime. So I don't know what plan, he didn't tell me what plans they have of doing it, but when they empty that water tower out, I tell you what, I know they do it, because I can't even walk out in my woods, because this water will be this high. And it comes up, it can't get to my house because there's a hill there. The poor Eugene, my neighbor, it floods his front yard and everything. I thought his drain field wouldn't work anymore, but must have a good drain field. Okay, thank you for your time.
This is Kathy Spicer at 525 Baker Road. What do I sign here?
There should be a specific one that notes this public hearing.
Oh, yeah, let's see. Here we are. Okay, I better
Great.
sign quick. Well, so I'm wife of Dave Spicer, and our property is the property that landlocks this 2.4 acres that's being discussed tonight on those sides. And thank you for the nice agenda packet and all the paperwork with it. And thank you for the trustees, because I finally got it printed out and don't have to look on my cell phone all this time. Thank you, Rob Pattison, for sticking up for us residents in Scio Township through words about this, with communication to Dan Johnson, Heritage Woods, because Heritage Woods backs up to our woods, just to remind you folks how all that went before it left you and went to the trustees. And for Pam, and I forget that lady's name, sorry. So I'm speaking as one of the two residents that are impacted by this parcel rezoning. And this is a public hearing, and unfortunately, we're the two public and a few others, and it's been that way with Heritage Woods. I want you to see our faces. I want you to visually see real humans who live this land and those woods, okay? We have 4.1, I think, acres is the total there. It's not just our woods, sitting out there. This parcel ends up in our mowed backyard, okay? Sorry, you're a little emotional, shouldn't be. I hike it, I have a pathway, I hike, I can get a good nice mile in, I can cross-country ski. I've done this since the early 80s, whatever, all the time we've lived there. I can do my little four-wheeler, he does it more than me. Of course, I watch the wildlife, and I know wildlife impact doesn't mean a lot for rezoning, but it's there. And I bow hunt. We don't just sit in our family room and look out the sliding glass door and say, oh, isn't that beautiful woods we have? No, we live it. And I just think, they cut all the trees like you talked about in your paperwork. I'm gonna have direct access to looking at beautiful I-94. It's really gonna be sad. I am gonna have a nice wall or something commercial building then to look at. It's gonna cut my trail and be right there, because our trail's there, and boom, there's that little parcel of property. So it really impacts us. I wanted to say also, along with Dave's mentioning, we call it our creek. Yeah, that waterway is an official waterway. I thought they even said to us once, it's water that drains off I-94, either over it or under it, besides the water tower. That is a plan. I don't know what somebody would do or say if we tried to bulldoze it closed and let a pond happen. We let it run, I'm sorry, this is a public hearing. Can I just have another minute? Thanks, thank you. I just want to say on page 5,
Just kind of
it talks
finish up
about
that line.
additional access. This property is landlocked. Additional access, property acquisition, and potential rezoning of property will be necessary for development. And I guess that might mean us, and somebody might say, maybe. Well, what's the hurry? What's the benefit to changing it right now to the township? I just ask that you take more time and just don't do anything with it right now. And we're still trying to stomach Heritage Woods, and the boulevard is being put in that cuts our property and puts it into a wall. Nothing can much be done with it, makes us lose our direct access to our homes and our driveways. And we're still trying to stomach that and what's come of that, and negotiations or not that are going on with it. So I just feel like the developer, John, they want to just stomp us in the ground now with this, and I just glad, thank you for listening, and we are just the only lonely folks there getting hurt. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the township hall? Seeing no one, we'll move online.
We have one hand up online, Rob Pattinson. Rob, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rob Pattinson, Scio Township resident. So that the discussion is clear, Glacier Way Properties is Dan Johnson, the same developer of the Heritage Woods project. There are 2.4 landlocked acres up for rezoning tonight. Mr. Johnson has been hostile to the Kett and Spicer families in the Heritage Woods project that interferes with their access to their own properties from the front. This new parcel basically comes up to the back door of the Spicer house. The Planning Commission needs to be very careful with this application. Considering the previous project, it is very possible Mr. Johnson will send bulldozers right to the edge of that 2.4 acre wooded parcel, and that puts them outside the back door of the Spicer house. That, or he'll put LED billboards on the property so the Spicers have flashing lights in their home 24/7. The point is, at this time, we have no idea what he intends. The stress of dealing with the developer has already caused Mr. Spicer a stroke. Surrounding him front and back with this developer seems extremely unfair. The past few years have been so bad that the Kett and Spicer families have had to hire an attorney, and it's cost them thousands. This application seems very premature. Rezoning for the sake of rezoning seems shady with a developer like this. Instead, there should be a specific project associated with the application. Let them come back when they have information that the Planning Commission can base its discussion on. You should be very wary of giving this developer the benefit of the doubt and trusting that he will do the right thing. Please vote to deny this rezoning. And I have some additional comments based on what has been shared tonight. Joe Maynard just shared that the deed, the easement was written into the deed. I have never heard anything about that. I don't believe the Planning Commission has ever heard anything about that. I spoke to Eugene Kett earlier today. I know that this project is news to him. If this easement had been part of it before, I believe the Spicer and Kett families would be aware of it. And as you just heard from the Spicers, they're not, and Eugene Kett is not. Why wasn't this part of the original Heritage Woods proposal? It seems to me that changing the proposal between the Planning Commission approval and what the Board of Trustees saw, seems to me that's grounds for a lawsuit. That if they're changing the proposal between approvals, that's again very shady. And then Commissioner Human just asked an important question. Oh, well, that's what I just said. Did the plans change between what the Planning Commission approved and what the BOT saw? So as Kathleen Brandt said earlier, and David Spicer said, this stinks. And thank you, Mrs. Spicer, for showing the emotion. It's important that the Planning Commission understands that this is a significant impact on your family. So well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Couple more hands up here. Jonathan Greenberg, you have the floor.
Hi, I'm going to give you the gift of time tonight by saying my friends Rob, Kathleen, and others have already made the points I was going to make. I think the words slimy, proven shuckster, and developer that can't be trusted all apply in this circumstance. I sure hope you guys see that now and vote no. So thank you very much and have a great night.
Thank you.
We have Pam Boyd. Pam, you have the floor.
Thank you. I have two questions confirming. So this property with its 12-foot access would allow for a highway billboard to be placed, which would require the cutting down of a lot of trees. And if there is a waterway there, what would would that do to the future water issues? Or there's not an issue now, but unless the water tower empties. The second one is, what is the purchase price of this property? And is it comparable to what was offered to the Ketts and the Spicers? Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no other hands up.
Move to close the public hearing.
Moved by Commissioner Hyde,
Support.
support from Commissioner Reiser to close the public hearing. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it's closed at 7:45. Just a question, were you able to find those drawings?
I wasn't, but I might have found them now in February. So it wasn't January. And then on Valentine's Day?
Yeah. I read it today again, yeah.
February of this year?
Yes, I'm still looking though.
So,
Yeah.
just so you know, the easement shows up on sheet C 8.0.
C8.
Yes. I don't know if it's, because I don't have records going back to the reviews, but I know on the January 27th set of plans, that's the page it was on, so.
What's it on, page what?
C 8.0.
Let's see.
Jeff, you got it up?
Yeah, I do have it.
Yeah.
So he's right that it shows up on C 8.0, which is called Dimensional Site Plan Area 4.
Is it possible for you to join the meeting and share your screen?
Um,
Can.
yeah, Doug, what's the best way to do this?
To join the meeting,
Okay,
And then he can promote you.
or I could try to find it real quick. What agenda?
it is trustees, February 14th. Public hearing, section I1. And then it's under HW Plans 1 in the attachments. I can get that again.
Hold on.
And what date is that?
February 14th is where it shows up in the agenda, but I believe
Well, the date of the
The
drawing.
drawing
Drawing.
was probably
January.
February
20.
14th of what year?
This year.
Yeah, and what's the date on the
February
drawing?
14th Agenda.
The drawing date is
January 27th.
5/22.
It must have been revision.
Yeah, oh, yeah, there had to be revisions on here.
5/22 of 22?
12/9/22 was the last revision, it looks like.
So that was, and you say it does show up in there?
It shows up in this drawing I have in front of me, whether the revision titles are correct. Now knowing that it's on C8, I can go look and see if it was in the ones that we reviewed as a planning commission.
So just say C8.
Are you looking?
Yeah,
for the
C
drawing?
8.0.
Are you looking for Commissioner Mark?
Yes,
So I can start while you guys.
you
are
can
looking
start
at
while
that.
we're looking for the data here.
So I was reviewing the packet today, and in particular, this Ruth Johnson rezoning, and two things. And I appreciate the Spicer showing up this evening. Thank you, Mr. Spicer. Thank you, Mrs. Spicer. I was a little concerned when you only spoke at public time, so
You couldn't
I'm
speak
glad
to
you
this.
stayed. But two things leaped out to me, which is that this approval of this project would be against our ordinance, which says that highway commercial district C3 is only used in those areas of the township which are served by public water and sanitary sewer facilities. Now, Heritage is served by our public water facility. And maybe that parcel is too, because it's closer to Jackson than Heritage, but it's certainly not served by our sewer, public sewer. And so I struggle when we make exceptions to our statute, and I was a little bit put off by the fact that you did not point that out in your memo, Doug. I mean, good thing I was looking up C3, but because I think it's important when the planning commission makes decisions, particularly when they're gonna be a proposed project that would be against our ordinance. That should be highlighted. And, you know, with your explanation, and we've done it before, although I'm not usually, unless there's some really good reason to ignore our statute, I'm not usually agreeable with that. The other thing that leaped out to me was, what are the other residents gonna do? There's all residents in there. We're just gonna make that one commercial, and they're just gonna do whatever they're gonna do, and the people who are hiking their land and hunting their land or just enjoying their property are just gonna be squeezed between Heritage and so now a commercially zoned project. That did not make sense to me. I don't care what you call it, mixed use or not. I guess, you know, given the definition I've been using of mixed use, that being residential and commercial, it would certainly fit my definition, but that's where we're looking at projects that come on board that create a mixed use. So for those reasons, those two reasons, I've not heard any resident come in here today and say, oh, this is a really wonderful idea. I would like to see commercial lighting in a restaurant or a hotel put up, and I'm looking forward to a fast food carryout restaurant or a large scale retail establishment. I've not heard that, and it's for those two reasons that I will be I'll be voting to deny this project. I do take your point, Mr. Mayor, but I think it's premature. Somebody else used that word tonight. If all these properties want to sell their property and they want to do something with the property then, that makes sense to me. But I'm not gonna commercial up this neighborhood piecemeal. So perhaps that's something you can tell your boss. I'm only one vote, as usual. That's all I have to say about it. Thank you.
If I may, just to clear the record, I did review the plans that were presented before the planning commission on, I want to say November 28th, where we reviewed the PUD application. And the 12-foot easement is indicated in the drawings. I do want to point out though that the font on the words that say that it is a 12-foot easement are smaller than anything else I can find on this drawing. So it appears to me incredibly intentional that this was meant to be hidden from people's review. If I may.
I saw it.
You saw it?
I saw it, and I would, and my memory says that was described as an easement to access the bridge across, the walking bridge across I-94, when they thought that that's what the township had wanted in the direction that the Pathways group was headed for. So my memory says there was a 12-foot easement for the walkway crossing I-94. And we all said, that's not in the plans. So that's why I asked earlier if this was the walkway easement.
I see. Well, I have a question for Doug. Do we have standards on the size font that can be used on we don't, so you don't hide anything you want to, just make it as small as you can. I would like to make a recommendation that we address that through ordinance, yeah. that there
Or
should-
just the site plan requirements, that we amend the site plan requirements to have a minimum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This may be a question actually for Mr. Reiser. Was it ever brought up at the Board of Trustee meeting regarding this 12-foot access easement? This is new to me.
No, I don't remember specifically talking about this. I do remember talking about a possible future walkway across. I don't know what you can do with 12 feet. I don't know if you can put a one lane. I don't know what, can you get a fire truck? I don't know.
Can't think of,
I don't know.
think of road.
What's that?
Access is maintenance, correct?
What's a 12, what can you do with 12 feet of roadway?
No,
Nothing.
So
You can't build a road.
that's not enough even for a one-way road. I mean, that,
It's just like access by service vehicle, maybe kind of thing,
maybe,
you know.
I mean,
But
there's
like-
not enough room.
I don't know how you put a hotel or a restaurant back there.
There's no way that would be permitted for any kind of commercial access.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
12 feet
Yeah.
wide, you need 22 feet for two-way traffic. That would strictly be pedestrian, maybe a van
And-
access.
And
Would we even
frankly, I
consider
could,
rezoning?
I could see how, a landowner would want to at least be able to not have to go over someone else's property to maintain their
And-
property.
sure.
I mean, but
Like, my apologies to Kathleen Brand, I was kind of agreeing with her while being a smart aleck doing it, like, how in the heck are people supposed to access this? That's like a helicopter or a drone, I mean, how do you realistically, practically get there?
yeah, I totally agree. I think the biggest piece, I mean, two things here. One, rezoning a parcel that does not have vehicular access to C3 just doesn't make any sense. If, the proposal came back, we're combining these parcels, we want to rezone them, that would be a different, I would view that differently. I think that, and it's a minimal site size, so I think, I agree that it's
Yeah, I mean,
premature to do
it's-
this.
I guess it's my current intention to vote no on this, like if everybody south of that thing wanted like, hey, let's talk to the township about a group of us going in and let's get it commercial, because it's right off the freeway and we think if there's value to our land by going from R1 to commercial so that we could potentially develop it, so like if y'all had a little neighborhood committee that wanted to do this, I'd be in support of that, I would. But as this piecemeal landlocked, it's not ready for me yet. I get, like, maybe if they see it's commercial, then they're gonna want a commercial, but I'd rather do it in toto or en masse rather than, like the domino theory.
Yeah, my comment on top of that is, it seems like there's a plan, but I don't see what it, and we're not being told what it is. I'd rather see that there is a plan before I went down this avenue, because it doesn't seem to do any good for the property.
Are they doing it so they can put billboards up?
Doug said that, oh, you
They
may
could
have
do
missed
that
it.
now.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe there's,
They could do it anyway, whether it's
They
rezoned
can
or
do it
not.
on.
or harvest the timber, or I don't,
Residential.
They could do that anyway.
They can do it on residential.
Yeah,
Okay.
You didn't hear
unfortunately,
Doug say that, okay.
In this
Yeah.
district, it's an overlay,
because it's adjacent to 94, but you can only do it so many
Yeah.
per mile or something like that. So there are other restrictions on the billboards.
So if we vote this down, do they have to are they not able to come back until another year, or how does it work, or like?
Well, they can go and talk to the board of trustees.
Okay,
Yeah, they could come to board trustees and they could come back to us at some point.
okay.
I'd like to see a plan.
But I also, if there's any final words from the applicant, it's my intention to vote no, but if there's anything you can say, Joe, that might.
Well, I have a couple
This-
questions. One is, rezoning, by way of the master plan, isn't that rezoning by right?
What do you
You
ask?
still have to meet, you still have to meet all the criteria.
The criteria, one of the criteria is not to have access. Because it clearly states that, access will be reviewed at final site plan.
Mr. Lawrence.
Right.
I'd like to
Okay.
see it now.
Well, that's fine.
No, but one of the things like under factor 3 is like services, facilities, like they don't have water now. They could get water if they tapped in, right?
There could be a water connection potentially through.
From-
Heritage,
from-
Maybe, yeah.
An expensive one.
They have to
expensive
get
one.
a public, no. We start with the ordinance. When we talk about water and sewer, we start with the ordinance.
No, but my point is, they don't have water there, they don't have sewer there, that's one of the factors we can use to deny, is what I'm getting. I'm.
And he's looking at the findings of fact.
Like, and I'm just confirming that they don't have water, they don't have sewer.
I'm
And,
saying,
and they could have water for a big, long pipe and a tap fee from Baker Road, question mark, is that where you get it? Where would water even, so I
well, my
guess,
remarks with regard to Heritage Woods, I was told that Heritage Woods was within the water district, but not the sewer district.
That's correct,
why they're
and I'm
getting
talking-
water, and this property is south of that, even closer to Jackson, so I assume they could be in the.
They're
public
within the
water.
water, but they don't have
They're in the water district.
they're in the water district, but they don't have water services.
Is a 12-foot easement wide
Right
enough
now,
for
that's
water?
And
Although
and
it's
services is one of
circuitous.
the factors, Kim,
Yeah.
that's what, yeah.
Okay.
My second question before we go forward, would you be in support if all of the properties come back together for rezoning this to commercial, knowing that sewer district isn't there?
That's a really good question, Jeff.
It would change it quite a bit.
I think it's in this body's interest to answer that question.
I would just speak for this one commissioner, I would have to have a really good reason to go against our ordinance. So I'll just leave it at that.
To me, you'd have the advantage of it not being piecemeal. If
Yes.
everyone, you'd have the, like cause it's right off the freeway, it's, kind of one of the gateways, so to speak.
So my next question will lead to, knowing that the township's sewer agreement with Ann Arbor is coming up for renewal this December, is there any effort in moving forward with pulling this property in with the master plan and providing sewer service to this
No.
area?
Not for me. I don't even think people have that on their radar to be able to answer that question.
And I would say some on the board are cognizant that we need to decide if the 14 or the 1,200 REUs are gonna service another 10 years, another 15 years. And at some point, that needs to be looked at. And where do at some point, it makes sense probably to have sewer where we have water. Cause it's kind of, I'm not saying take sewer all the way up to Shield Road or if all the way up to Dexter, but you take sewer up to Marshall, question mark.
We do.
Pardon?
Don't we have that up there to the industry along?
We have water up to Marshall, not
No.
sewer.
They're all on septic.
So do you reconcile isn't the right word, but do you try to match your sewer with your water?
It would be something to discuss, wouldn't it?
Yes,
And I
yes.
think,
So I guess answer to Joe's question is, I don't think that's a settled question, but it's a question where we have sewer. It's one that needs to be discussed at a planning stage by the board and this body too, and OHM.
I think this is a policy issue because we have used this issue to restructure development. So there's not just how many REUs, or does it make sense to put sewer with water?
Where you want to build.
It's where you want to build.
Yep.
So it's complicated.
I would also just add, I agree with Commissioner Hyde. I'm not opposed, this is, the master plan is for C3. I'm not opposed to rezoning the surrounding properties to C3. Without a site plan, not knowing what's going on there, I just don't feel comfortable moving forward until we find out exactly what's going on with these properties.
Yeah, if I haven't made it clear, I think it's incredibly shady the way that easement was dealt. And I guess there's probably no legal recourse, but I would love for it to be in the minutes that the board understand that this was very dubious, shady. This is not good. This is not a good practice. You know, it's very clear this was meant to be hidden from Scio for reasons we don't know yet.
But Jeff, what if it's just merely as innocent as it's for a potential path to get people across the freeway? What if it's that simple, rather than shady?
Yeah, I think that was what the discussion was.
I mean, I think that's a valid point, but I don't understand why it is the smallest text on the entire drawing.
I'd have to look at it and see if it's similar with other easements on that drawing, but it wasn't intentional to hide it, it's just.
Did you do the plans?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think, yeah, you can, I don't know, infer anything you want, but I think one, you know, if someone took advantage of being a landlocked parcel and wanted a maintenance agreement, I could see that as being something we did discuss about, you know, at one point in time, having access, so if, in case we did the $4 million plus walkway across or bike path bridge across 94, which was very unlikely. So there were multiple discussions around that. But my core issue too is, one, there is not vehicular access to this
Right.
parcel. You need vehicular access to do all the things that C3 is required, so that makes it premature. So, and I would think, I would view it very differently if it were a whole group of parcels together, that there was an intention to develop it into, you know, something that would.
Or if they all
really
had
benefit
similar
the
access from the rear of the property,
Mhm.
something like that, like, okay, you all get 66, 66, 66, or however many it is, I don't know.
Yeah, well, 12 feet isn't 66.
No, but my,
Vehicular,
something,
but-
they might not need 66, but you'd probably need more than 12.
Yeah, so I just don't, I think premature is the kind of.
And there's no time limit. If this was denied, they could reapply next month. So
Okay.
they can pull this together with a more comprehensive.
Right.
I got one more thing to add too. if I could.
Oh, it's,
He's done.
yeah. So I think, just based on our discussion, I think we are ready for, to entertain a motion.
Yes.
I'd make a motion
All right,
regarding ordinance amendment number 23001, Ruth Johnson rezoning vacant parcel. The request is to rezone from R1 single family residential to C3 highway commercial. Based upon the information received from the applicant and reflected in the minutes of this meeting, the planning commission finds the proposed Ruth Johnson rezoning from R1 single family residential to C3 highway commercial fails to meet the informational requirements of section 36-461 and the factors found in 36-462 of the zoning ordinance, and recommends denial based on lack of compliance with 36-74 section 12A, which requires that it is readily accessible to the majority of the township residents and that it lacks public water and sanitary facility.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Seaman and supported by Commissioner Moore.
Would you
Yeah.
accept a friendly amendment that it also lacks sufficient vehicular access to the parcel?
Yes. Supporting the fact that it is
Yeah,
not
yeah.
readily accessible.
I thought that's what you meant.
Yes. Sorry, I copied the language from the actual zoning.
All right. Any further discussion on the motion? And I'll roll call vote, please.
Okay, Commissioner Hyde,
No, I mean, yes, I'm sorry, we're recommending denial.
It's a
Yes.
recommendation of
Yes,
denial,
too
yes.
Commissioner Hewitt,
Yes.
Commissioner Reiser,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang, yes. Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Culbertson.
Yes.
Okay, it is denied.
And that is a
Thank you, Joe.
recommendation that goes to the Board of Trustees.
I'd suggest you guys have a hallway discussion.
We're good.
No, a discussion.
Yeah, no, don't hurt the man.
You already won, you don't need to ruffle them up.
So that's Danny Brown.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to our
See you,
second
Kathleen.
scheduled public hearing this evening. And that is PUD 23002, the Honey Creek Business Park. And it's a new PUD for mixed use, flex space, and a hotel. And we'll go ahead and hear from the applicant, hear from our consultants, and then the public. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you very much for this time. My name is Scott Bowers, Bowers and Associates Architects,
I'm Mark Melkai with AR Brower.
and we're here to discuss the PUD for this piece of property. We're placing 4 new structures on the property. Office warehouse, retail, and a hotel. We did come in for a consent judgment, trying to get a zoning change for the height of the building, the hotel. That was denied. We're coming back to deviations that we have for this PUD would be the height of the hotel being a 4-story building, 47 feet. And there is one buffer, 50-foot buffer that's between the hotel and the existing Burger King and car wash that we need to deviate from 50 feet.
We did come before the planning commission last year for conditional use. There really are no differences in the site plan that we've submitted for the PUD, knowing that PUD is one option for doing a mixed use, as is conditional use. And as Scott said, the only kicker was the height of the hotel, which required us to go before the zoning board of appeals, which was denied. We do have positive feedback and have worked with the fire department to understand their position on it, which is they have no issues with the height of the building, so.
And currently, we're taking a look at Carlisle Warman's letter, and so is OHM, and working up our responses for that. We have not had enough time to do that at this time. But all our changes that we're contemplating on the site are minor. They're just to do a better job with our narrative and access control to the site, pedestrian access.
So point of clarification, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I understood that Mr. Brower wanted to go forward with the public hearing today and then set up a time to meet with Scio staff to go through his responses to Mr. Luan's letter. And I'm questioning whether or not that's a proper practice for us to do. Why not postpone or table this or continue this public hearing? In other words, we're gonna have this presentation, part of a presentation that doesn't have a respond to Mr. Luan's memo. And then we're gonna talk, then we're gonna have the public talk, and then we're gonna come, as I understand that process, we would come back here and Mr. Brower would present his responses to the Luan memo. In other words, I'm saying that it makes sense to me that we table this meeting to our next, allow them to respond to Mr. Luan's memo before we engage. I mean, I may have a different point of view of something if I read these responses, so I'm not sure why we would continue tonight.
I agree, a little cart before the horse kind of thing.
Yeah.
I was wondering about that too.
Yeah, let me give a little, just a little,
Yep.
if I can, just a little background on the process. So because this is a PUD, we, unlike a site plan where we have a staff review meeting to determine if it's ready for the planning commission, because this is technically a rezoning, as soon as they submit, a public hearing is scheduled. So that's why public hearing is scheduled tonight. And as more indicated, they're probably not exactly ready. So what Commissioner Moore is suggesting is perfectly acceptable.
I mean, the public should have the benefit of the tweaks too.
Yeah, but we would, if
We'd
we
have to
do
have a
that,
second public
the
hearing.
only
That's fine.
trick there
We
is
can
if you,
continue it.
if you do that, you have to postpone to a date certain.
Okay.
So I move that we continue.
Well, if we're gonna do a date certain, we need to kind of
Find out when that
You
certain
know,
date
when
is.
they can.
find out what
Prepare to come back.
that date might be. And we have limited dates, coming up. I think we have, the next one is the 28th. And then September 11th and 25th, and then it skips to the 23rd of October.
Would they give you sufficient time? Do you prefer a date in September?
I think we would prefer to date September.
Which one, the 11th or the 25th? Your pleasure.
I would prefer the 11th.
9/11.
Are we
Oh,
backed up on
all
our
right.
calendar?
Please.
Who said that?
Come on.
So I move that we postpone the public hearing to September 11th to allow sufficient time for Mr. Brower and his team to meet with Mr. Luan or his staff to work out some of the responses in the memo. Come back here and go forward from there.
Is there support?
I would support that.
Motion?
Riser.
We're gonna have discussion after, before the vote.
Then you have to, we're gonna have any discussion on this, any concerns that the planning commission wants to extend to the petitioner.
Well, sorry.
Yeah,
Can I make a comment or is out of turn?
There's a motion on the floor.
yeah,
So,
but we don't have support yet.
we did.
Did we have support?
Riser
We did.
support.
Oh, riser support, sorry.
Yeah,
But usually we have discussion.
Discussion.
Before the vote.
Yeah, I'm gonna support doing it. Kim, can you, I think it sounds like some of the commission wants to hear a little bit of more information, so do you mind if we
Oh,
wait?
absolutely. No, that's proper, Robert's rules, any discussion.
So you put your motion in advance?
Well, hold on.
No.
Can we please, I hear what Commissioner Hyde has to say first?
Well, if we're
Well,
gonna.
no, I don't think so,
So-
because
so I
this
think
might
the
not be
chair said-
debatable.
no,
We
I'm
might
gonna-
have to vote on this. I don't know what the Roberts rules say about this.
Yeah, it
There's been a
would
motion
say
and
that there's a
second.
motion and a second.
I'm
So
asking
if,
her to wait,
so if we wanna have discussion, we need to vote the motion down, we can still bring the motion
or
back.
put it in advance.
Or
Or you can have
Discussion.
discussion before the
On a
vote.
motion that's-
Yeah, we can have
We
discussion.
can have
before the
discussion
That's
before
what I
the
was
vote.
asking, if we would have discussion before the vote.
I'd be in favor of that.
We've done that in the past.
I agree.
Yeah, not when there's been a motion on the table, but
Yes, we have.
But
yeah,
There's
that's
been a
usually a
motion,
discussion.
second,
I
and
think
then
the
there's
trustees
discussion.
have
About
done that,
the-
but I don't know. what
not
mine-
about the project.
Okay. Were you
That's
discussing
proper
the
to have
motion?
discussion after the motion,
Or,
so.
no, okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
It seemed to me that there would be a few things that would be worth their while to hear about. There might be a few that they could clear up in the same time frame that they're going to be clearing up other issues that have been brought up by Carlisle Wortman's memo. And I didn't see in the discussion that Carlisle Wortman put through anything about did OHM review it? Have they reviewed this? I don't
Yes.
recall. Any discussion about calculations for I'm trying to think, stormwater management and where it sits over the soils. I think you brought up soils. But I'm saying that it looks like there could be a stormwater retention pond right over one of the small wetlands as it currently exists. And I would suggest that the soils might not absorb anything, and they might want to address that. If that's indeed the case, that's what I'm seeing. But to me, it wouldn't work if it is over a wetlands. That's one thing. There might be others people want to bring up.
Do you have some more that you want to throw out there for their digestion?
That's the biggest one. Other things are personal concerns, but that one seems to be a design issue to me. and pedestrian vehicular access from Jackson Road and circulating within, that's part of the discussion too. And I believe that the planning commission had a list of items that they had concerns about when we approved it last. And I'm not sure that we really addressed that directly in the Carlisle Wortman's review. I don't think you pulled that up and went over those points that we might have made there. That was definitely one of them. We may have approved it, but it was not just pending rezoning or allowing the deviation from the building height. There were more things.
This is a brand new application, correct? This is.
This is a
technically-
PUD.
They've been before us before
Right, I
tonight, but
recall.
A
It
similar,
was a conditional rezon.
is this a final site plan?
no, this is a
Okay,
preliminary.
okay, so this is the preliminary, okay.
Well, so the only thing I was gonna add in that motion, but now I can add it, is I would like to go later. I will not be present for the 11th, unfortunately. I have a conflict, but, you know, we don't have to schedule around me. Saying I would like to be involved.
Other,
I think from my perspective, it is a PUD, it was denied, it sounds like, for the building height for the hotel. It's probably gonna be a sticking point on what the public benefits are, so be prepared for conversations. I know it's been coming up at other PUDs, so beef it up.
We discussed several of them at our pre-application meeting with Commissioner Moore and Doug, and fire department was there, so. And then we've included some of the suggestions for the public benefit within our submission, so. I would say that our resubmission will not look really different than what it does now. The only difference from when the conditional use was approved is the hotel is actually a little bit smaller than it was
How many stories?
originally. 4 stories.
4 stories.
But it was a
99
122 room
rooms.
hotel and now
So
it's,
just so you know, how the planning commission views things might not be how the board views things. Okay, so don't be surprised if you're asked about how is the fire department going to extricate people and fight fires at a higher building than what's usual, and contributions might be geared toward the acquisition of a ladder truck or something to help fight that fire. So whether, you know, whether that comes up here in this forum, at this body, is, you know, expect that to come up at the BOT level. Not that you already don't expect that, but I'm telling you, you know. So we're, you know, Andy, you know Chief Hood, right?
Yeah,
So-
understand.
Yep, you have a, you know,
So as I understand it, you applied for the ZBD variance for
The
4
ZBA.
store, ZBA, I'm sorry, ZBD. For 4 stories, right?
Right.
And so now you're going back to the 3-story
No,
plan.
we're staying at 4 stories.
because in a PUD, you
You can see that.
can.
Oh, we can approve that.
that.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Not you can get it, but
Doesn't
okay.
require
Yeah.
The zoning board of appeals is very limited on what they can
Yeah.
approve. And
There are
through-
certain standards.
Through a PUD process, they can offer things to the
you
township.
avoid the pesky ZBA.
The zoning board of appeals can't consider some of those things.
Right.
Well, you mean
And I
literally,
guess,
but-
I guess one of my issues, PUD is to do something that is creative, unique, you know, has some, it definitely has public benefit. The things that we've been talking about as far as along Jackson Road are mixed use with residential, placemaking, connectivity with pathways, making it multimodal, all of these types of things. And as I think we commented a little bit in the prior development, it is primarily buildings placed in parking lots.
Yep.
And so, you know, my goal with PUDs moving forward is what is unique and placemaking about this PUD that contributes to the fabric and the community that we want to benefit? So
Like
I think
net
that's my
zero?
concern. Well, yeah, well, that doesn't even get into the net zero, all electric kinds of commitments that we're asking
Right.
people
And this
as
is
well.
about as downtown as it gets, man. Zeeb in Jackson. So is this what we want our downtown to look like? What is this gonna look like as we think about this PUD? You know, how's this gonna serve us in 20 years?
There's no
What-
plaza
what-
in here that joins all these buildings together and lets it be a community.
There isn't any public, sort of public space, there isn't any bringing of people together. It is,
Can it be downtown-y? Which is not a.
and we're talking about form-based zoning, that type of thing, which is very different from what is being presented with this PUD. So I think those are the concerns that we have, that's very structural with the development.
Good point, Madam
This
Chair.
is the prime area, one of the prime areas.
So we're looking at pedestrian walkways. Not just pull up with your car, get out, go in the building.
Right, it's one of the
We're
reasons.
trying to
why
get
we
away
wanted to
from
hold
that.
back.
Pardon, sir?
That was one of the reasons why we wanted to hold back. We do see the need and the design elements that we need to create.
And was
I
this
thought you needed to hear.
including the open space calculations, like you were using the stormwater detention as part of your open space calculations?
Apparently that's allowed.
The definition of open space, does that not, it includes detention
I would
areas.
revisit that. I'm not looking at stormwater detention to count as open space. I know it technically does, but you know, it's a sea of parking
It's
lot
not-
out there.
There isn't there isn't usable open space, public access, open space, that type of thing. Okay.
I guess I also wanted to say that one of the parking lots looks like, at least one of the parking lots in small font, looks like it's has underground detention.
Correct.
And I think that's also over the wetland area. You gotta check the soils. I don't know, I gotta believe it's gonna be, OHM would be looking at that, so
Well, that actually just limits your
Yeah.
infiltration.
it does.
And, yeah.
So I have concerns that it'll even function in that regard.
well, then it functions as detention and holding as opposed to any infiltration.
Yeah.
And that can, it just needs to be bigger that way.
And it needs to be part of the document. And that would be reviewed actually at the final.
At the final site plan stage. Anyway,
So the
any
question
other
is,
structural?
after 9/11, when's our next one?
25th.
Is 9/11 realistic for you guys?
We believe so, yes.
Well, could we pick a date? I mean, I would be concerned about Commissioner Human not being available on the 11th.
I think you'd have a lot to offer.
Could you do the 25th?
We prefer not to, but you're voting.
We prefer to have our Commissioner Human up here.
We have done soils analysis, by the way. I mean, we do have, in as much as we had come in with the conditional use, we'd gone really quite far with the design, the engineering of the site. And so we have done a traffic study, we've done the soil analysis, our civil engineer has, who's not here tonight, but so our understanding is that it's, you know, PUD preliminary and final PUD first, and then these more detailed engineering concepts, although I understand your questions and your concerns, but.
You know, we don't want to blindside you.
Sure.
We're in the process of developing our plan for the Jackson Road corridor, right off, yeah, so this is where you're getting all this tonight to get.
Yeah, we were hoping to get some
what we're
feedback.
looking for a development.
We're hoping for this, yes.
Okay.
Would it behoove them to look at, Laura, in your mixed use form-based memo from a month or two ago?
That only gives a comparison between.
No, but I think, but that kind of stuff kind of came up at Thursday's meeting.
Yeah.
So I mean, just to take a look at like, what we don't want is building a lot of parking lot. I'm counting, you okay?
Yep.
We're gonna try to migrate at least I am, and maybe others are too, trying to migrate to a little more, like I say, a downtown, mixed use, pedestrian, clustered, walk to this one, and you park here and you go to this store and you go to this store and you go to the hotel and you get a drink in the bar and you go some, that kind of thing.
And then with the form-based where the buildings are on the closer to the sidewalk as opposed to a big parking lot and the buildings are off to the back. But anyway, that's,
And also looking more multi-story, and combining some residential.
In office, yeah. Is
So
there-
those are some of the discussions that we've had
residential-
about this piece.
There's no residential
You're not
component.
gonna say residential?
Just the hotel.
Okay.
maybe that other property you got,
Yeah, okay, so
What
I
about
think.
the other building, the existing building? Do we have?
That'd be
any
great
concerns?
residential.
Does it have to be addressed as part of the PUD since it's on the same lot? I mean, what, is that going to remain identical?
Yeah, it's a different parcel though, isn't it? Or is it connected?
It isn't.
Parcel
all-
on Jackson Road.
Mhm.
It's currently one large parcel. There is where the retail building is, there's a separate parcel that would get combined with this.
But
But
the
we don't
existing
have
building is
plans
not
for
part of.
No, we understand that. I'm just saying that might be
Manufacturing
something you wanna look at for residential.
This one?
Yes.
Yeah, well, different graphic.
Yeah, that's not part, that's a different parcel, the
Yes,
Malloy's.
it's not
Yeah, I
included in
thought
this
it was
plan.
The address of this PUD though.
It's all one piece right now.
It's all
it is.
one
Except
piece.
for where the retail center is shown.
Gotcha. Thank you
Yes,
for
it's all
pointing
You're
that out.
developing it.
And does it have, my question is, does it have to be talked about as part of this PUD since it is one parcel?
lot.
Or do they have to split the parcel?
Yeah, are there any improvements because you're doing something on part of the parcel?
Yes,
Is it-
they're gonna, we've had discussions, it's my understanding they're gonna split that in some manner.
Ah.
And so
Yes.
this PUD it should only affect the parcels that we're talking about, the property we're talking
Shouldn't that
about. Yes. that
be
should-
part
that
of
should
the
be clear.
PUD discussion?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, so that's the intent. Okay, gotcha.
just trying to get this as out there as best we can now.
Thanks, Bob.
And our traffic study recommends some use of the Jackson Road. So maybe there's gonna be some interaction between the two.
Yes.
So a shared drive.
Potentially.
So would the 25th work for you, Mr. Brower?
25th does work for me.
I'll amend my motion to say that September 25th.
No objection.
Any further discussion?
You have that conflict there too?
No, I'm good on that one, thank
Oh,
you.
worse.
No, just,
Don't even.
you guys covered a lot of stuff I wanted to cover. It would be nice to see pedestrian pathways indicated and traffic calming measures as well. I realize this is preliminary.
On Zeep or on Jackson?
No, on
on
the
the
driveway,
property
that
itself.
Okay, okay,
straight
Anywhere you
shot.
have cars and people interacting.
And we've had lots of discussions about drive-throughs. We'd have to look at this particular location, but those have been a real topic of discussion, so. All right,
Call the question, Madam Chair.
all right, roll call vote, please,
Okay, Commissioner Hyde.
What was the motion?
to postpone till.
Yes. I
Postpone
don't wanna
the
do it
public
again, so
hearing
Yes.
and set it for a continued public hearing on September 25th.
Commissioner Hyde, that was a yes?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Commissioner Heumann,
Yes.
Commissioner Reiser.
Yes.
Commissioner Che, yes. Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
and Commissioner Colvin.
Yes. Thank you, we'll see you on the 25th.
Thanks.
All right, we're going on to our new business, possible action on conditionally use PSP 23011 Slim Chicken Mixed Use Drive-Through Restaurant. Welcome.
Hello, how are you guys? May I provide you with a copy of the presentation that I'll be sharing on the screen as well?
Sure, and that was loaded into the packet too, so.
Oh, this was?
Oh.
Anyways.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's all right there.
X is very fast.
All right.
And this is for
Conditional use.
conditional use.
Yeah, so it's just to allow the drive-through. that's the. Right,
Yeah, I'm just working on.
so we did have, I just want to note that we did have a public hearing on this.
But it was canceled
Yeah, so.
because no one showed up.
Yeah, no, they postponed to this date.
They posted, yeah.
They asked for the postponement.
Right.
So this is the public hearing?
This is the public hearing.
It's listed as new business.
Yes, it is.
I mean, we could, I think we postponed to a date certain, so actually we should open
Was
a
it
public
noticed as a
hearing.
public hearing?
Well, it was noticed the last time,
Previous.
which it doesn't get renoticed.
Yes, I had joined and requested to postpone due to our traffic study not being in yet, which it has been received. I have a copy with me here this evening.
There was no public comment, so and we did do date certain, we did it properly, so you just, it would be appropriate to open up.
Okay, then I'll go ahead and reopen the public hearing for Slim Chicken conditional use. And it is, what's our Apple time? 8:38. Like that. Okay, go ahead.
My name's Ryan. I am the Vice President of Pre-Development at Plaza Street Partners, the developer. We're here representing our client Slim Great Lakes, which will be the operator of the Slim Chickens. I have two of the partners here with me this evening to join as well. So the subject property for the conditional land use is the parcel off of South Sea Road, just south of Arbor Chase Drive. If you know where the Leo's Coney Island is, it's just that vacant parcel with some trees there. I do want to point out this parcel is originally platted when the Meyer and the condominiums were developed. So there's an active agreement that's recorded against our property where we were essentially the Meyer development and the condo development agreed to stormwater and landscape buffers and things like that that I'll refer to throughout this presentation. In the reasoning kind of why it's currently zoned as mixed use.
So if I could just, so the mixed use comes in, because it's.
Currently zoned mixed use, and then if you see where the.
This is my question.
Oh, yeah.
So it's considered, you're considering it mixed use because there's residential in Chase and commercial with your restaurant.
Yes, so when it was originally platted, it was intended to have the condos in the back with the two commercial out parcels fronting Zeep Road. To give you guys a little bit an idea of the brand, it is called Slim Chickens. It started in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Its first location opened in 2003 by the two owners, Tom Gordon and Greg Smart. Since 2003 until now, there's now 150 locations worldwide, most being in the United States. With current development agreements, they're looking at having over 800 locations over the next 10 years. It is a chicken concept that their mission is to provide the best handmade, hand-breaded chicken tenders with fresh ingredients and providing a kind of family-friendly oriented atmosphere. It's just really a great chicken concept. To give you another idea, the next page is just the menu to give you a feel of what would be served at the location. They're also very well known for their homemade house sauces. They have like 25 different kind of sauces that are made in-house. They have wings, salads, wraps. About the operator, as I mentioned, that's Slim's Great Lakes. We here tonight have Todd and Brad DeLange. Their other partner, Dud Broadwright, is not here this evening, but they're all local and from here in Michigan. They are committed to opening 25 new locations of Slim Chickens over the next several years in the greater Detroit area. So they're very excited about Scio Township and they're looking in other neighboring communities as well. All of them are very experienced restaurant operators with over 10 years of experience operating Jimmy John's throughout the state of Michigan. So they are familiar with the area and operating in Michigan. Just a little bit about Plaza Street Partners. Our firm, we are preferred developer of Slim Chickens and their franchisees. We have personally built over 15 locations and we're currently in the progress of building 11 to 12 more. We just opened one last week in Little Elm, Texas. So we are very familiar with the brand as well. So here now you'll be looking at some exterior renderings. This is the brand new Slim Chickens prototype. You'll see that it features some neutral colors. The exterior materials are a lap painted siding, and they have brick. You'll see the awnings. They use red as the accent color to reflect their logo. One of the key things that the brand has always wanted to accentuate is their patio. So the building is about 2,800 square feet, and then there's a 400 square foot patio. So the patio is very important to the brand to kind of keep that family oriented style. The next page actually has a colored elevations to show what would be facing each road. So the front elevation facing Z Road would be the patio with the awning. So that's in the upper left-hand corner. The right elevation on the upper right-hand corner would be facing Arbor Chase Drive. That's the main entrance where customers would park, enter into the main entrance, and then that would be facing north. The rear elevation, you'll see there's some lap siding and Nichihad there. That would be facing the Arbor Chase condominiums, if I'm remembering that correctly, and the landscape buffer to the west. And then finally, on the bottom right, you'll see that's the drive-through elevation. So there is one drive-through pickup, pay and pickup window that would be facing to the south.
Is it one window or separate windows for pickup, separate for pay?
It is one window. Slim Chickens used to have a concept with both, and then they've made this operational change for greater efficiency, actually. We're seeing that the company I work for, we do Popeyes, Freddy's, things like that, and we're seeing a lot of them move to the one window. Because I don't know if you've been to a drive-through recently, you'll see no one's staffed there.
Got it.
And then they have to go to the one anyways.
So it's the same guy or gal just running back and forth.
Yeah, I think it's partially due to staffing and then also greater drive-through efficiency, which you'll see how we have the two menu boards as well. Yeah.
So is this front elevation
Yes.
here, is that on Z Road?
Yes, that would be facing Z Road.
Okay, is the parking in the back of the building?
I have a copy of the site plan further into the presentation, but there will be parking on the side facing Arbor Chase Drive.
Oh, on the side?
And on the front.
And on the front.
That's coming on a subsequent
And on
slide.
the front.
If you go to the site plans, you can see that.
And is the patio on Z Road?
Yes. Faces Z Road.
Faces Z Road.
Actually, the parking does Z Road.
So the parking is on the side of the building and in the front of the building?
Yes, I
The
believe there's.
building's not on the sidewalk.
Correct, it is not on the side.
Why is that?
We generally do not push the building all the way up against, it's kind of with drive-throughs, difficult to do that because you want to fit the drive-through lane and then a bypass lane. So if a customer was in the drive-through lane, another one could essentially use that bypass lane to go around them for traffic flow. And if we were to push the building all the way up to a sidewalk, either way, you're minimizing that traffic flow around the building. I can go to a site plan on the screen really quick.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Okay.
We really need to hear it.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna go back here really quick. Here's pictures of existing Slim Chickens to give you a feel of what it looks like in real life. These may be, some of these are the other prototypes or past prototypes, so they do vary slightly, but you can kind of get a sense of what the patio looks like and the feel that would have facing Zeeb Road. The bottom right, if you guys have questions of what that drive-through kind of stack would look like, that's a picture I included here as well, to show the two menu boards and how that would create greater efficiency for cars ordering.
So so is the gray area in the fourth picture Z Road?
Down there, that would actually be facing towards the west, so towards the condos.
So the drive-through is in the back?
Yes. And then it wraps around and faces, so, yeah.
You go in to the front of the building where that big Slim Chicken sign is, or do you have to use the side?
There is a gate that on each side that you can use to enter the patio from that way. Here's some photos of what the inside looks like at other locations as well. They pride themselves in, you know, like I said, the homey feeling. It's pretty unique. They like the tall ceilings, the pitched roof. Yes, the wood, the brick, lots of signage. So some more details about the operations. So there are 66 seats inside for dining and 32 patio seats. So offering 98 seats total for patrons. The number of customer or percentage of customers drive through to dine in varies depending on the market because they're all a little different. So it's between 40% and 60% swaying either way. So some markets only 40% are using the drive-through, 60% are seating in, and that kind of just changes. So if this in Scio Township were a market where you want, like, people are more geared towards sitting down, we have the seats to be able to do so, and we have markets that do that as well. Drive-through, we are providing an 18-car stack, as you can see with the rectangle spaces along the menu boards. If it exceeds that, it still has space to wrap around if needed. But the average drive-through wait time nationally for Slim Chickens is 4 minutes. So that's fairly low if you've been to a drive-through recently. And then if it does get busy, employees are equipped with iPads to go out, take their orders, and make sure they're moving faster. And there's also carry out. Some chickens can be offered on mobile pickup apps, and there's curbside to go spaces that would be designated. And then customers can go inside and pick it up at a pickup window as well. The hours of operation have not been finalized for this location, but most Slim Chickens operate on a 10:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. on weekdays, then 10:30 a.m. to 11 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays. They employ about 40 to 50, sometimes more employees per location. And so it's just another great opportunity for more employment in your area. When it's very busy, when a new restaurant opens and everyone's trying it out, you'll see about 15 to 20 employees working there at one time to keep up with that new opening kind of influx. But peak number per shift is kind of around like 8 to 12. Deliveries and loading, a lot of these were questions in our comments from the township. They come about 2 to 3 times a week, early in the morning before business hours to avoid interrupting with operations or with traffic. It's generally a Scio truck. And now here's a site plan. So this is very conceptual landscaping, but I did want to show, instead of just looking at the gray and white site plan, it's kind of hard to see. So that one page just kind of shows what would actually be green space on our site plan. That agreement that I talked about earlier, it's a recorded declaration and agreement that was between the Meyer developer and the Arbor Chase condominium developer. Per that agreement, we are required to maintain a 30-foot landscape easement to the west facing the condominium. So that will remain. We cannot change that per recorded agreement. So there will be that landscape buffer. And then you guys are probably familiar also the amount of trees between the Cambridge Club apartments and our parcel that also has to be maintained per the recorded agreement, which we'll keep in place. That area is about as thick as 65 feet in the back. And then as you get close to Zebra Road, it's about 25 to 30 feet.
So on this map, ingress and egress, you go, the center one, you go in, and the bottom one, you go out.
Correct. The center one is both ways. So we originally, in the original pack, you may see there was 3 access drives. The engineering team made a comment to potentially remove one, which we are willing to do so. So we have removed that. And so the current access points are just essentially mirroring what the Leo's Coney Island has to ensure that there's no conflicts or site issues.
Got it.
So I I just want a clarification.
Yeah.
Where is on this map here? I'm sorry. Where is the drive?
So if you can
It's
see,
on the north side of the building?
it's on the south side. So if you're looking at, I'm not sure if you can see my.
Juts out a little bit.
Yeah, it juts out a little bit. So there's a menu board here.
Pick it up right there.
That's the window, and then the menu boards are back here, right?
Yeah.
Are
So the
back in
menu
here.
boards are right here. So menu boards are always 6 to 7 spaces from the pickup window is the brand kind of.
Yeah, because they're saying a couple different things. I want to make sure what it is.
There's two parts of the drive.
Yeah, so cars will enter here and begin stacking. And then there's 2 menu boards so they can
They
choose.
order here,
And then they'll pick up right there.
they pick up food here. Okay, thank you.
Slim.
Thank you.
It's fried.
We
Thank
want
you.
to ask all our questions now, Dan, for clarification.
Of fact, yes.
So if I'm coming from a business or the neighborhoods right next door, and I'm just not gonna drive through, I'm gonna go and sit in the restaurant. How do I walk in? I don't see a sidewalk crossing the parking lot. I know, I see one on Zebra Road, I see one on Arbor Chase Drive, but I don't see it connecting the building to any of those walks.
Yeah, so that's something we've addressed in other jurisdictions by creating a striped kind of pathway. So we could address that with our final site plan review in the next steps, but essentially we could create a sidewalk connection from Arbor Chase and then show striping to the sidewalk adjacent here to the building. That's something we've done before.
No, we don't see this, the engineering.
How about, can you walk from Zeeb to it?
You'll see that, yeah.
Okay, good.
Will you be able to walk, will you be able to approach it from the east?
We'd have to walk up the sidewalk from Arbor Chase Drive, I believe, from what she just
Remember,
said.
we're just, facts. We
Yeah, I just
don't
wanted
have
to know
a
what-
sidewalk from the Zeeb sidewalk.
There's
in.
no
We
sidewalk
don't have
entering this
anywhere.
complex. Anyway, here's the
But
fact.
this is the conditional use piece too, and
Yeah.
we're also getting into the site
Yeah.
plan because
That
the
would be later,
conditional
but-
use does reflect some of the issues with the site plan. If that makes any sense.
Would you consider this a fact? Moving that building up here so pedestrians can come to your restaurant and not have to cross in the path of vehicles. That's what you're saying. You're gonna put a little yellow things on the with the
After
area
they
where
pay for
car.
it, how are they gonna get out if they can't go this way?
We could potentially reduce the parking along the frontage, but then we would be underparked per code requirement. So we're at 44, we have 41 required parking spots. So, but if you guys were willing to give a parking variance for us to remove that parking and shift it north, but I think it's important to have enough parking for those patrons. But as long as cars could exit, and we also don't believe we'd be given direct access to Zeep Road for the building concepts where we've had the building all the way up against the sidewalk, we were able to have direct access to that roadway for them to exit, which is not feasible here.
Well, we're talking about pedestrians, because we want pedestrians to go to your restaurant, not just cars.
Yes.
Yeah, and how do people
So
walk
the
there?
fact that I'm trying to make the point here is
Yeah.
that we want it to be pedestrian friendly, not just car friendly. This is all car friendly, so.
Yeah.
However we work that out, that's gonna be a concern I have. And I don't consider yellow marks in the car area where cars are going by as pedestrian friendly. That's an accident waiting to happen. So.
It's difficult to make both of them work
Yeah.
together.
Yeah,
It is a
I
challenge.
get the variance of the parking requirement that, but that makes no sense for citizens that
Like-
wanna
Okay,
walk.
I think we're kind of getting into some deliberating kind of pieces here. I
All
want to
right.
make sure we finish our,
That's why I just
Okay.
asked, how do you get in?
yes, right. All right, so also this is a public hearing. I think we've We heard your review. Did we go get, we didn't do your review. Okay, so we need to do your review.
Are we done with the presenters?
Oh, sorry, you didn't finish, did you?
No,
Keep going.
sorry.
Sorry.
I'll try to speed it up. So I'll skip the other pages because they're more site plan related, but trucks can go in and out of this site with ease. We have no issues with connection to water storm. The detention pond that serves the Meyer and their out parcels also serve our out parcel. So the one that's all the way up in Jackson was actually our parcels dedicated to as well per that agreement. And so once we develop, have to pay like an annual maintenance fee for that. So there's 6 conditional use standards, which I'm sure you're aware. So the first one, we are committed as the applicant to work with the township and planning commission to ensure that we're meeting all the ordinance objectives and regulations set forth in the ordinance, whether that's comments this evening or later or with planning staff. The second being compatible with the natural environment and existing and future land uses in the vicinity. The parcels surrounded by other mixed use C2 zoning, which we are currently are, with the exception to the south of the apartments. Mixed use commercial was meant to be per the master land use plan, more intensive commercial businesses. So you guys are aware, I've heard it multiple times tonight, that Zebra Road and Jackson are kind of the commercial corridors for whether they're within your community or out of your community to get food, shop, get their things done, or, you know, whether it's workers coming to eat. 3 conditional use standard, third conditional use standard, that it would be adequately served by essential public facilities. Highway and streets, we have a completed traffic impact study that I have with me that was completed by RS Engineering that shows that the current streets will support our proposed development without any warranted improvements. So I have that here if you guys would like to take a look. They looked at 8 major intersections surrounding the proposed development. Police and fire, I showed a fire truck can easily enter and exit the site, and there's an existing fire hydrant nearby. Drainage ways, I talked about the existing storm system that we'd be connecting to. Refuse disposal, just like all operations, we will work with the operator to ensure timely trash pickup and grease interceptor cleanup as well. And then responsible parties of the establishment are definitely equipped to handle this. As I mentioned, they're experienced restaurant professionals that are local, so they will be incentivized, and not even incentivized, they're here to check on it. They're not operating a restaurant from far away. The 4th conditional use standard, that the use will not be detrimental, hazardous, or disturbing to the existing or future neighboring or uses. I already talked about the traffic study stating that it does not warrant any improvements and it can support the development. We have existing sidewalks to help promote pedestrian safety. We'll look at additional pedestrian access to our site. Our ADA spaces are directly adjacent to our main entrance. And then I had already spoken about the existing landscape buffers to the west and to the south to prevent any detrimental effects to the neighboring residents in those areas that will remain. 5th condition use, we will not create any additional requirements at public cost for public facilities. And finally, 6, the compatible with the township's master plan. So countywide initiatives, for example, was to encourage future development to infill sites with increased density in already urban and suburban areas. This parcel, as I mentioned earlier, was platted to be commercial, which is why it has the landscape buffers to allow for commercial use. It already has the stormwater basin because that's what it's planned to do so. And it's also designated as commercial and mixed use in the future land use map. I don't think that this parcel is likely to be a candidate for, you know, a residential use potentially just based on its current location. And also within the Jackson overlay district, as you could see by the elevations we've shown, it is high quality materials, a good looking building that I think will help drive customers to come and wanna go eat there. And I know you guys already know the master land use plan, so I'm not gonna keep quoting it, but you're welcome to read it if you'd like. But I do feel that we also meet the transportation goals and zoning requirements as well through our proposed use. So that is the presentation. I'm not sure if you guys have any other questions, but.
Clarifications?
Can I ask, where's, on the site plan, is there a bike rack that I missed? Or is that on here too somewhere?
We don't currently have them shown, but we will be providing, I think, 3 bike racks for 6 bikes total per code requirements, which is standard to our Slim Chickens development.
Okay, I think it'd be.
Carlisle Waterman.
I think it'd be helpful just to start by talking about the process a little bit. So this is on the conditional land use stage of this review. The conditional land use stage does not require a detailed site plan. In fact, what the applicant has provided is substantially more information than we would require for the minimum amount of information for a conditional use permit. Items like bicycle racks and things like that certainly would be a site plan issue, not necessarily a conditional use issue at this point. What we're really trying to determine at conditional land use is if this use is compatible to the surrounding properties and to the township itself. I mean, as the applicant went through the 7 or so criteria that we have to find for conditional land use, they all sort of come back to, is this use going to have a negative impact on the neighbors and or negative impact on the township? So we say that in a lot of different ways, but it all kind of gets back to that general question. That's why it's a conditional land use. That's why drive-throughs are a conditional land use, because in some locations they're okay, and in some locations they're not okay. And so some of the things that we would try to determine if it is okay or not okay, of course, traffic. You have to indicate that this traffic impact study that they have this evening. I would hazard a guess that OHM has not reviewed that. Perhaps the road commissioners reviewed it, I don't know. But that would be an issue that the commission should know. What, if any, changes will be required? The applicant indicates that their traffic engineer indicates that no changes will be required. However, we would need to really get that verified by the Washington County Road Commission. Other issues, we've mentioned in our review, we've got a few outstanding issues with regard to the special land use. We've also provided some site plan comments. It's hard not to when you have a very detailed site plan. So I understand the commissioner's desires to talk about the site plan. We did the same thing. But the concerns we came up with really have to do with how the use may impact neighbors. We talk about particular unique sewer water needs for the site. Perhaps, so I think Stacy's online, perhaps she can talk about that in a moment. If there's any issues with a restaurant being proposed in this location. And then particularly on this site, we have had concerns about the drive-through, how the drive-through functions, what they expect for stacking. I know we've all heard horror stories about Chick-fil-A and how that can really negatively impact a neighborhood. And so, I hope you're very successful and that you bring a lot of people in, but I hope it's not as many people that will, be hanging out into Zeeb Road and or blocking Arbor Chase Drive. The other thing that would kind of go along with that concern is in this particular case, we do have, as noted in our review and noted by the applicant, there's residential use to the south. And part of our question about the intensity of the drive-through, that we would hope to get some information from the applicant. How many vehicles they expect, how many vehicles do they have in other stores, and with regard to speaker boxes, is there noise impacts? Well, it's Cambridge Cove Apartments to the south, and there is a buffer. We recognize that, pointed that out. There could be issues with speaker boxes and the noise created by those with folks that live adjacent to the property to the south. So we have, oh, and then also with regard to access, we appreciate that the applicant has agreed to remove one of the points of access to the site. I'm not, that might not be the access point I would have removed because it's closest to Z Road. And so we want to get traffic off of Z Road, moving up that Upper Chase Drive. Particularly if people are going to be pulling in there for a very crowded drive-through. We certainly don't want cars to back out onto Z Road. So I think we were more thinking you would leave the western two instead of the eastern two. But that's not really my expertise, and that would be borne out by some review of the traffic impact study. But the easternmost drive is acceptable to remain as is, and or if the easternmost drive should be a exit only and not an enter site, and not an enter point. I think it was an exit only that would be more acceptable for vehicles leaving the site if it was particularly crowded. But I guess those are the questions, the thoughts that I have. Again, we're not necessarily, I know it's hard not to get into specific site plan concerns and issues because there obviously is some relationship. We do require a certain amount of information for a conditional land use permit. It's very basic. As I said, this is way more information than we would require for a conditional use permit. We're most interested in the how this is going to impact site, the township, and adjacent neighbors. So I think there's some information that still needs to be addressed to the satisfaction of the Planning Commission prior to this project moving forward to the township board. So that's our request. And we can try to answer any questions that you might have about that.
Yeah. Picking up on your comment about having one be an entrance and one being an exit only. And what if that was combined with the previous comments about having pedestrian access? If we had actually a block in the parking lot that did not allow you to completely drive around, but you came in one entrance and you drove around, and you could still have almost the same number of parking spots, you just have to get all the way around the building, and then, but there would be a barrier that the pedestrians would walk across, that the cars couldn't cross in between the two entrances, or one entrance and one exit. That way, there wouldn't be a complete circulation of cars, and there would be pedestrian access.
So that would have to be on Upper Chase Drive.
Yes, it would have to be on the north side, in between the current two entrances.
Yeah, I mean, that would avoid, then people could avoid walking across. There still could be some car traffic there, but
Not if this is a raised barrier, raised walkway. So, I mean, just a suggestion to pick up what you said and what was said earlier. With that.
All right, any other questions for Doug? Because we still have OHM and then we need to hear from our public.
You have one question for Doug, and that would be one more question. The agreement that has been referred to that put this in the mixed use category, and they have alluded to, this is in the agreement, that's in the agreement, we can use for a fee, we can use the stormwater management pond, all that. Is there a list of those items that have to be addressed that this has to comply with, that we would review as part of the site plan? Is that when it would come in? To make sure that they meet all the agreements that have already been put in place?
yeah, that would be obviously very appropriate for the site plan, but certainly something you could ask for now.
So they didn't come prepared with it.
Yes, and I didn't, I have not seen them. So I do know, I do recall this site being developed.
Right.
And there are some commonalities between the three parcels, some access issues, and she said, stormwater and things like that.
But at the site plan review, we could review that.
Yes.
So,
I thought because of the conditional use, there was no site plan review.
No. This is a two-step process. So we're just doing the use right now.
Oh, I see.
And if the use is okay, then they have to submit a full-blown site plan, which they already have a lot of information,
Yeah, a
they're
lot
pretty
of
far
information.
along on their site plan. But, yes, right now it's just the use question. And if approved by the township, it has to go to planning commission and township board, they would then be eligible to submit a site plan.
That's about it. Sorry.
An opportunity to address any of the comments you made about volume at all, or is I can do that later?
We can do it later.
Later, okay.
Any other questions for Doug? Right, OHM. Did they have anything they want
I don't know.
to comment on? I mean, conditional use typically they don't, but
We did review this one in terms
Okay.
of conditional use, but we do not have any comments per se. So we did recommend approval in our letter dated June 29th. We don't anticipate any issues with the utilities or infrastructure with the project as proposed. Like mentioned, we will finalize those items in the site plan phase. And we have not seen the traffic impact study. It sounds like that was done after the conditional use review. We generally don't include that in our review as it's typically not covered. But if the township wishes for us to review it, they would need to formally request OHM to do so. More of a formality than anything. I do not know if the road commission is going to be reviewing this project or not, just given its access to Arbor Chase instead of Zeeb. We probably could have them review it if needed. Otherwise, I think that OHM could handle those types of reviews as well. If you have any engineering related questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And if I could mention that the Scio camera is off, we cannot see you.
oh, okay, thank you.
No problem.
But we like it that way.
In the dark.
Sometimes that happens.
Okay, then go ahead. Any questions, other questions for OHM? All right, is there anyone?
So I have a question for OHM.
OHM,
Just
sorry,
maybe
go
a
ahead.
clarification. Ms. Monte, so right now you've not reviewed any stormwater or anything like that?
We've only reviewed what they've provided. They do not have stormwater calcs, I don't believe at this time. That's generally not included in the conditional use. So we don't include that as our comments. We usually will just look at space, and it appears that they'll have the space to do what they need to. And since they have a portion of that Meyer outlet or the Meyer pond, I don't anticipate that being a problem, but we will compare what they're proposing with what that pond allocates to this property to make sure that they have what they need.
Thank you. All right, so if maybe go ahead and respond to volumes, because maybe there might be some public comment about that, because that's definitely a part of the drive-through piece.
I wish I'd mentioned it earlier, but we do hear the Chick-fil-A comment a lot with it being a chicken concept. And to kind of give you a perspective, Chick-fil-A's average unit volumes are between $6 and $8 million a year. The Slim Chickens, like average annual unit volumes around 3 million. So that's about a half of what a Chick-fil-A is doing. That'd be great if Slim Chickens were doing that much, but it isn't the same as a Chick-fil-A volume. I actually have volumes for the 6 drive-throughs in the area around the site in a 1/4 mile radius, and the Culver's does 4 million, or they did 4 million last year as a reference. And the Wendy's is doing 2.4. So just to kind of give you an idea of reference to the other neighboring current drive-throughs and Chick-fil-A versus Slim Chickens, I think that might be helpful.
Was 2 million?
2-4.
2.4.
And you're talking about the Wendy's on Zeeb Road?
Yes.
Ask a question of Doug.
Yes.
If Chick-fil-A was to acquire some chicken somehow in the future and turn this into a Chick-fil-A, would they have to come back here, or they would be able to use the site, assuming it was approved as a drive-through?
If they could use it as it's shown here, they could just use it. If they need to make modifications, they have to come
But as a site plan, the conditional use would allow them to have a drive-through though.
Yeah, but if they needed to expand the drive-through or make it more intense, they would have to come back for an amendment to the conditions.
But that would be of their own volition, right? There's nothing in our ordinance that would require them to address. So we have a Chick-fil-A.
I disagree that we do. Let's not hold Slim Chicken against, or Chick-fil-A against these guys. This is the applicant before us. That's my take on it.
But we oftentimes consider
I-
all of the possible land
It does
uses
run
on all
with
of
the
these.
land. I
And if we're
agree.
saying that that argument is valid in any other case, then I would say that that's a similar argument here.
And I appreciate that, but
Yeah, I think that they gave us some data and I mean, drive-throughs can vary.
So do you have any other way of calculating your volume? Because I'm worried, I mean, you heard our last meeting in July. Okay, we talked about drive-throughs extensively. So one of my concerns is the traffic volume and the lack of pedestrian protection. That's one thing. And then secondly, the amount of traffic that these drive-throughs produce. I mean, obviously, on the flip side of it, you want that. That's more money, more revenues for you. So I get,
Are you clarifying a point of data?
I'm clarifying a point of data. And I'm wondering if there's another way that like you gave us dollar figures for volume. Is there another way like how many cars are
Our
going?
traffic study outlines, so traffic engineers use the Michigan DOT or the ITE standards, and they have the same one for all fast food users based on the increased number of trips, and they use worst case scenario. And so they use that for our traffic study. So they're assuming all the Chick-fil-A's essentially. And even with that, our traffic engineer stated that they were no improvements warranted with our proposed development. And I truly believe that the way the Slim Chickens, some people might say, why are there too many boards? It's to help them move more efficiently and faster through the drive-through, so you're not creating that traffic congestion. So I think that's how we address
I have a
that.
question on what the traffic study looked at. It looked at the impact of the entire development on the roads. Did it look at the impact of the drive-through on Arbor Chase?
Yes, and so I actually had a long discussion with our traffic engineer when we saw the comments regarding removing one of the 3 drives. They recommended the one furthest to the west because they talked about essentially drivers coming south down that drive and turning may not be able to see cars coming out and turning left and creating an accident essentially. And they said the best way to prevent any collisions or traffic congestion would to be mirroring what's already there, because that's where you're already looking. You're looking across and going left or right. And so that's what we went with. If it was suggested during the site plan review to look at the access points, that's something we're willing to do, but we took our traffic engineer's recommendation.
Yes.
So as I understand it, you order at the boards, you come up to the side of the building, and that would be the west side of the building, right?
Yes,
In
the
the
south
west?
side. This is the south. This is the north.
North is up.
Okay,
Zebra
well,
is
Zebra
north,
is,
south.
oh, I see, this is Arbor Chase, okay.
Yes.
And then you have to exit from that window, once you pick up your food, you have to turn left to go over to Chase Road.
Yeah, and then you take that exit only and likely go to Zebra Road.
And the exit only is the first one?
At least that's Howard now.
Yes, that's currently, yes.
It wasn't, it was entrance and exit.
Yeah.
You might get.
All right, so is there anyone present in Township Hall that would like to comment on the Slim Chicken conditional use? I don't see anyone, so we'll go online.
We do have one hand up, Pam Boyd. Pam, you have the floor.
Thank you. Hopefully you're not getting tired of me tonight. So I want to point out, if I can move this. So the other C2s that can be here are automotive body repair, automobile truck washes, contractor storage yards, equipment rental, lumber yard, machinery equipment rental, a couple of other things. Second off, I appreciate the very professional presentation by Ms. Sass. I think adding in walkability is an important aspect that needs to be paid attention to for this planning commission and the ideas and hopes of the future of the Jackson Boulevard DDA area. I really like this outdoor space with this restaurant. This is a fast food restaurant, and you tell me how many fast food residents have an outdoor space that is larger than what the Carlisle restaurant has down the road. So I look at this as this speaks to me of a downtown feel with this outdoor space, without the alcohol. So I actually hope that you do pass this. And I do hope that Ms. Sass looks at the walkability to make that aspect stronger in this plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Move to close. We have more? Doug, are there more?
Yeah, hold on, I had to not get her off there. There are no other hands up. Yes.
Do I need to move to close?
Okay, by Commissioner Reiser, supported by Commissioner Hyde to close public hearing. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we'll move on to deliberation.
Just a point of clarification.
Yes.
About what Ann said. We're not approving the whole list of C3 possibilities. We're approving one use.
Yes.
The drive-through. Well,
No.
the basic zoning can take all of those things.
But we're approving a particular use.
Yeah, we are.
Go ahead.
So a little, we have to recognize this is currently zone C2. Drive-throughs are permitted in C3, and because this is a mixed use, we can consider C3 uses as well. So part of what Ms. Boyd said is correct, that if they came in with any of those uses, someone could propose those, but that's not what's being proposed. Right now, just a drive-through is being proposed. That's all we're being asked to look at.
I think maybe Pam's point was, it could be worse than an attractive drive-through. You know what I mean? I agree with the point she was making. Like, this is better than some of the things that by right they could do.
I was just trying to clarify, we're only looking at one.
Right. But I also.
But the conditional use allows any future owner to consider the other conditional uses. Is that correct?
I have to say that again.
So if we approve the conditional use, despite what they're doing, another owner of that property could come in and have access to the other conditional uses in the ordinance.
They would have to request those.
They'd come back here and request.
The only thing that you're acting on tonight would be, just like any special land use, is a drive-through.
A drive-through. It could be anybody.
Oh, a drive-through.
It could be anybody, not Slim Chicken's drive-through. This is a drive-through.
I got you.
Yeah.
Like a bank or a bigger restaurant.
Yes,
Or
in theory, correct.
But significant changes, you already said, would have to come before us.
As a site plan.
Not the condition.
And I would just ask commissioners how this drive-through is different than the one we turned down in July.
Do we have a comparative distance between?
Well, I will say one, I
And I'm not trying to catch anybody or,
No, rhetorical.
well, no, I'm asking informational. I'm trying to get my head around it because to try to see what your thoughts are about it, because
I will offer what my recollection, and you guys can.
Will do too.
One, the previous owner did not have a traffic study. And so that was an issue raised, I think, by Mr. Chang. He was very,
oh, that's right.
he said, until you get a traffic study, I can't even start thinking about this. And the circulation, my recollection is the circulation pattern was more difficult, or at least was the point of significant discussion on the part of the planning commission. Those are the two main items that I recall.
And I'd also suggest that, well, one of my concerns was access to the entrance. You'd have to go
Oh, yeah.
down the boulevard, turn around, come back. See, I mean, just this one's more direct.
And there were some conflicts at the
Yeah.
entrance that were concerned that this is a greenfield site that can more easily plan for a drive-through. The other one was a retrofitted drive-through that, in my opinion,
Yeah.
that was having some difficulty fitting. That's my recollection.
So I'm a bit confused. This property is currently zoned C2,
Yes.
and so we would conditionally rezone it to C3?
No, as part of the Jackson Road Overlay District, which this is part of,
Okay,
an applicant can request a conditional use that may allow uses also permitted in the C3 zoning district.
where do I read that?
Not in that document. It's
Okay.
It'd be in the ordinance.
It's in the zoning ordinance, yeah.
For the Jackson
Road
Road.
overlay.
Say that again,
Jackson
Doug.
Road Overlay District.
Say what you just said again.
The Jackson Road Overlay District allows mixed use consideration. Drive-throughs are permitted in the C3 district. And so they may request uses that are also allowed in the C3 district as part of a mixed use project. I see. This being a mixed use project, historically, this was the apartments or the condos came first, but there was always the understanding that the two outlots would be commercial. And a lot of the same conversations that we had about our last mixed use, about the dealership mixed use occurred at this site. But the Planning Commission Township Board ultimately agreed that this would be a mixed use. The reason I say that is because of the condos on the west side of the site. That whole property was owned commercial at one time. And the condos were the thing that created mixed use. That was the use, that was the mix that they needed. They needed those two front lots to be commercial.
So, Doug, I have a question. Let's say that we want it to be more pedestrian friendly, pedestrian accessible off of Z. Like there's Arbor Point and there's French Country and there's residential across the street and there's a lot, the Arbor's Grove, the Parkwood, and there's there's Trailwind, so there's a lot of people that we want walking there and biking there. And, at what juncture do we embed pedestrian safety and walkways into this concept?
Yeah, I mean, site plan, you can certainly raise those issues now that we will be requesting them at the conditional use stage.
And I'm looking at the color photo, which is on page 12, ma'am. And I see sidewalk along Z and I see sidewalk along Arbor Chase. And where would the sidewalk be that is the shortcut sidewalk that lets them get in there as soon as they can to get that slim chicken?
Yeah, so that's definitely something we can consider that we've done in other developments, is extend the sidewalk from, if you'd want it from Zeeb Road to the parking lot. You can't just, but it would go to the parking lot, so that's where the striping would come into place. So it'd be a mix of bringing the sidewalk further in, so you're creating that access, and then we'd have to think creatively with our civil team on how do we avoid pedestrian and vehicular conflict right there. So if we're able to find parking elsewhere, but we're currently, like I said, we're trying to meet parking requirements.
Am I
Could it
right?
be raised?
I would suggest that
Your
you come in
walkway
off
be
of
raised a little so that Cars are slowing down.
What's that?
I would suggest you wouldn't just come in off of Eve, you'd walk up the sidewalk up Harbor Chase and then come in from there. It's
Do you
just,
think people are gonna walk across the grass to get there? They're just gonna cross the
some people
lawn?
are, some people are always going to.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. I
I
mean,
would.
yeah, Chris and I would when we go there.
Okay, with a conditional use, you can add conditions.
Yeah.
So, I mean, right? So, I mean, there could be specific
She's the best
conditions
chair
about
ever.
pedestrian access.
So like one of the
and-
conditions with the applicant will put a sidewalk that connects Zeb Road to the parking lot and safely across into the thing, something like that?
Do that, and you could do it also from Arbor Chase.
Can we make it, can we say that it needs to be somewhat raised?
A safe passage for pedestrians across.
I don't know enough about it to say whether raised is safe or not safe. I don't know.
Okay, well, let's set that aside, okay, so we can place conditions on it. Okay, but I think we need some other discussion about,
I'm sorry, I still am stuck on I don't think this is permitted, and here's why. Because the J-Rod overlay district, which says that as a conditional land use, permitted uses contained within the C2 and the C3 and other stuff are allowed as a conditional use, but it specifically says permitted uses contained within the C2 and C3. Drive-throughs are not a permitted use in C3, they are conditional use. Included in conditional uses are truck stop facilities. Hold on, I've lost my place. Truck stop facilities are included in the conditional uses, and I don't think that's in the intention of the the Jackson Road overlay district. And so my whole point though is that the conditional use that we're considering here, because it's part of the J-Rod, only allows for permitted uses within C2 and C3, not conditional uses within C2 and C3.
I mean, I can, we've made a determination a long time ago that these would be permitted. That's how we allowed the Starbucks, that's how we allowed that one just north of this. I mean, the Panera, I mean, this goes back a while, where that determination was made at some point. I appreciate what you're saying, but this was discussed and talked about, and I could try to find the history of that, but we've permitted.
So this is,
Panera, we've permitted others using this.
Jeff, what's that site?
Using this as.
You want to know which one? For the
The J-Rod
J-Rod?
ordinance?
Let's see, it is section 3676. Subsection, I don't know how you number these, hold on, give me a second.
That's good. I haven't missed it.
It's a bit of a A, C, D. So
Subsection D?
and then 2.
I mean, you raise a good point, Jeff. Then this is a problem with getting away from what the ordinance says.
And I get
agree with
that
that point.
J-Rod allows you to have a conditional use of this C2 and C3. That makes sense to me, right? There's a discretion to be had whether you would have a lodging or standard restaurants, law enforcement, fire stations, roadside stands within the J-Rod, but I mean, a truck stop facility doesn't make any sense to me. A fast food restaurant, I would say, is a similar thing here.
Well, we have truck stops in the J-Rod.
Were they approved as part of the J-Rod?
the J-Rod probably came after the truck stops.
Yes.
Okay.
I guess the other point is, just point of discussion is, as we've been talking about also, I get that point. I think we may need to get, if there was an official determination, because obviously, I mean, it still could be challenged legally, but we've been proceeding along that pathway, and maybe there's an issue with the language in the ordinance that hasn't been corrected, but there was a determination. I guess I'll leave that. I think it's a valid point. Another point of discussion would be, we have Leo's, which I don't believe has a drive-through, that's a sit-down restaurant. And at what point, I mean, there's drive-through with relationship to 94. And, some of the discussion that we had about, community-based, I mean, you talk about being family-friendly. And I think the outdoor patio is really nice. An outdoor patio and a Scio parking isn't as nice as an outdoor patio that has landscaping around it. An outdoor patio in a family-centered restaurant in a sea of parking isn't as nice as, having the patio and access and so forth, not in conflict with the vehicular traffic. So part of it is, do you want drive-throughs anywhere, or are drive-throughs more related to highway traffic? Pam Boyd did make a point that, people do those for fast shopping, fast pickups. I do appreciate that you have, order ahead of time and have the parking spaces, for coming out. I guess, do you have any sites that don't have a drive-through?
I think there might be one, but that is not really, in the brand's like standards. To be completely honest, I mean, if you think about saying 40 to 60%, that range, that's half of the annual sales of what the use would be looking for, and that wouldn't be sustainable.
I just think of all that impervious surface all to, and traffic volumes.
It seems like you need to flip these two sides. Because what happens is people come in from the Chase Road, they go all the way around, now they're traveling on the one side of the building, then they gotta travel on the other side of the building. And then they gotta travel right in front. I mean, the circulation is just, is traffic oriented.
If you were to flip it.
But I guess you'd still have that if you flipped it, because you gotta get out.
Yeah, if we flipped it, then the stack would be much shorter, so then cars would get kind of stuck. And then, so you'd be kind of creating that conjunction, then cars would have to circle back around to exit.
This is totally designed around the drive-through. I mean,
It is.
yeah, and that's what happens when you have drive-throughs. You have to design it around the drive-through and the stacking. It's, yeah, basically.
That's why it works in this location and it doesn't in others. For drives.
For cars.
For
cars.
Okay, yeah.
So, Chris.
First, I'd like to thank you for submitting the traffic impact statement, because you probably picked up on it at the last meeting from the old Panera Bread. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate that the third curb cut is closed. And I'm also hoping that, if possible, that OHM can review the traffic impact statement. If they agree with it, then I'm on board. I'm going to rely on Carlisle Wortman stating that it is a conditional use that's allowed in the C2. So, and I will also, I think, chime in that I'm agreeing a lot with Commissioner Hyde. I think at the last meeting with the Panera Bread, the drive-throughs along like Zeeb and Baker Road that are off of I-94, I'm more inclined to be supportive of the drive-throughs in those locations. My concerns are really going to be more at the site plan stage. I'm more concerned with probably noise, visibility. I'm afraid it says you're open until like 10:30, 11 o'clock, headlights coming in and facing towards those residential units. I may be asking for way more landscaping, fencing, something to block off that those headlights are gonna go in there, something to screen more from any type of noise, but that's a site plan stage. I'll deal with those issues at the site plan, what I'll be looking for. So I agree with Commissioner Reiser. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. I'd walk straight into the place myself, so definitely be looking at the pedestrian connections. But for me, as far as this location, for the conditional use for a drive-through, I'm gonna support it.
you mentioned that your average idle time, sorry, your average wait time in the drive-through is 4 minutes of idling. So that's 4 minutes of idling, and I was just eyeballing it based off of your plan, but it looks like you can stack about 15 cars before they get stuck in the street, so that's about 50, it's 18.
This is 18.
It's 18.
Oh, wow, all right, fine. Well, so 15
Flat.
would be 60 minutes that is, but, and this is your average, so we're 18. So you could get 18 cars in, sorry, an hour and, now you guys make me do math, an hour and 12 minutes. So 18 cars in an hour and 12 minutes. Does that seem reasonable as to the amount of traffic that's coming through?
It's,
I mean, that's a maximum, I guess.
yeah, I mean, when the store first opens, you're gonna see lines that are longer than 18 cars, because everyone wants to try the new chicken place, so I'm not gonna say it's never gonna go past those 18 cars. But once you see that plateau, it's kind of rare that you're gonna see 18 cars in there at once, unless it's like, you know, McDonald's at 5 o'clock, and then it's never really like that. I would say the 4 minutes is from when a car enters and until they pick it up, essentially. So I don't know if that helps, but
Yeah,
it,
4 plus 4, because there's a queue, there
yeah.
be 130 seconds behind, 130 seconds behind.
18 is a whole lot better than 10.
So are there some things you can think about what you would do for, or is it premature to ask about that right now, or just
The pedestrian?
pedestrian access?
I think we can specify.
Pedestrian and bike. You know, like, I'm okay with a general statement about that the applicant install, you know, pedestrian access from Steve Road and Arbor Chase with, you know, as safely as possible, and leave it to the experts to spell out the details, the transportation experts or the engineers, on how they effectuate that. But I want it to be part and parcel, you know, safe pedestrian access.
From both Arbor Chase and Z.
Well, however they can do it. I mean, and if we don't like how they end up doing it, then we don't have to
No,
approve.
but you might park across at Leo's Coney and walk across, or you might come from Meyer, or you might come from Starbucks where you get your coffee and you come here. You might walk from apartments that are to the north.
Or the east. I mean,
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yep. So safe pedestrian access. And if they propose something and we don't think it's safe enough or it's doable, then we don't have to approve it then. I think we're coming up with the conditions that you said we should specify now. That we expect to see if we approve this. I sense we're going to, but I don't know that we're going to. I have one, and that is that I'd like to see everything that was discussed back when this mixed use proposal was approved by the Board of Trustees way back whenever that was as part of the development, the Meyer development, that each one of those be addressed in that site plan presentation. I'd like to see those to make sure that everything that was required is being met. That would be something I'd like to see.
I'm still stuck on the legality of it. Was a lawyer consulted about this, or is this just Carlisle Wortman's opinion?
I don't know, there's no attorney, but this was the past drive-throughs that were brought in. I don't exactly recall the history, but there was a determination made. Frankly, as zoning administrator for the township, I make that determination. The only appeal to that determination could be to the zoning board of appeals. So I'm assuming a determination was made at some point on the exact circumstances, but we have a track record of doing that. And there's likely some discussion about that. So, but now we have two, or at least two within the J-Rod.
Well, is Culver's in the J-Rod?
Yes,
Is Starbucks in the J-Rod?
yes.
Is the
Panera.
Panera in the J-Rod? What about the Burger King across the street? Is that in the J-Rod?
Predates.
Okay, so what's new?
Nothing.
So Culver, those three?
Yeah, at least, I would have to look to see the circumstances of
I
Culver.
don't know if RB.
Starbucks.
And then there was one also approved for that, the Pancake House, wasn't it?
Amy's.
Oh, there was something.
On Z,
I'm trying to.
I think the determination wasn't literally the permitted uses. It was, these are the permitted uses and of those districts. Everything in those districts, they still have to go through conditional land use, which can be denied. You're not obligated to approve any of those uses. That's what conditional land use is for. And so I think it was all of those uses, permitted uses in all those districts can be considered. I don't have that written down in front of me. I wasn't anticipating this question, but we obviously thought about it. Somebody thought about it over the last 5 or 6 years. We permitted several of these. I would think it would certainly be contrary to what we've permitted over the last 5 years.
Well, I hope this body knows my position on past actions by this body, and how I think they should determine our future actions. But to say it clearly, I don't think that past actions should be dictating our future actions, especially in the face of something as clear as the ordinance spells it out, permitted uses, not conditional uses.
But it's not the planning commission's role to make determinations on use. It's the zoning administrator and the zoning board.
I see. So who makes that decision first? Is it the zoning administrator?
Yes.
Then tells the planning commission, this is allowed?
Yes.
I see. And
so I think
then,
the bigger question
oh, sorry, I do have,
on point here is that the ordinance, we need to clean, either we're gonna continue to do this, or the ordinance says something different, or we're gonna change the ordinance to make it clear. I think operating this way is messy and it opens us up to liability. So if you want to continue to operate this way, then I think we need to change the ordinance to reflect that. But leaving it, the ordinance saying one thing, and then we reflect back on something that we've made decisions over the last 5 years, I think is leaving future planning commissioners with the same problem. So I get it, I'm probably gonna vote for the project tonight. I trust what you're saying, Mr. Luan, but I just, for the commissioners, we need to clean up the ordinance.
Or define when there's a preliminary, the relationship between the primary use and a permitted use and a conditional use that.
Or
they-
say
they-
that, or you could change the J-Rod ordinance to be clearer.
Which we're gonna work on
We're
first, so yes.
Well, no, can I say
Yeah.
that we're, as part of form-based zoning, we're going to address this
Okay.
very directly by uses that we allow in different forms.
And form-based doesn't really allow drive-throughs. If
Well,
you do
we-
a true form-based.
Well, as long as what we do is we list the uses in a particular area of this form, then those permitted uses will be permitted.
Or maybe we don't have
But they
more,
can't be,
more
I think,
drive-ins.
I think one of the things is it wouldn't,
Right.
they wouldn't be, geometrically, they don't work. In a
Oh, I
form-based.
see what you're saying. Drive-throughs don't meet the.
You could
can't-
say they're okay,
I
but,
agree, correct.
but physically, it doesn't work.
And Commissioner Moore just said there might not be any more allowed after that
Yeah.
implementation, which might be what we end up with.
well, so one of the hallmarks of our democracy is that there's always checks and balances. So what are the checks and balances for the zoning administrator making decisions about
It's
interpreting
the
this rule?
ZBA, which is
The ZBA?
quasi judicial.
So the ZBA determines whether the zoning administrator is interpreting.
Somebody has to make, someone has to request an appeal to
To the ZBA.
the zoning
Just like the
administrator.
zoning board of appeals can appeal any decision made by anybody. So the zoning board of appeals could appeal a decision made by the planning commission. They can actually appeal a decision made by the zoning board of appeals. It's your last step. It's your last step going before the court. So the appeals body is the body that appeals an administrative decision.
Okay. I think we're ready for a motion.
You want to take that, Chris?
I put in the wrong one.
I've got one, but I see what.
You can,
Commissioner
you
Culberson
can
did.
add this
I'll
and
flip
this.
back.
Yeah,
I'll flip
okay.
back. Okay.
Thanks.
Conditional land use, number CU 23010, Slim Chickens, drive-through restaurant within mixed use. Based upon the information received from the applicant reflected in minutes of this meeting, the planning commission finds the site plan and related information received by the township meets required standards and findings for conditional use and recommends approval. Specifically, it is found that the following required standards and findings found in section 36-224 of the zoning ordinance have been demonstrated by the applicant. A, will be harmonious and in accordance with the objectives and regulations of this ordinance. B, will be compatible with the natural environment and existing and future land uses in the vicinity. C, that the proposed use will be served adequately by essential public facilities and services such as highways, streets, police and fire protection, drainage ways, refuse disposal, or that the persons or agencies responsible for the establishment of the proposed use shall be able to provide adequately any such service. D, the proposed use will not be detrimental, hazardous, or disturbing to the existing or future neighboring uses, persons, property, or the public welfare. E, that the proposed use will not create additional requirements at public cost for public facilities and services that will be detrimental to the economic welfare of the community. F, will be compatible with the township's adopted general development plan. Further, the planning commission recommends the following conditions be placed on the subject conditional land use. Provide safe pedestrian access from Arbor Chase and Zeeb Road. Concerns noted in the planner's review, concerns noted in the engineer's review, and requirements from address.
Okay, so that from the original development
Okay, requirements from the original development
address
addressed
and
and listed on
on
the preliminary site plan.
And I think we should do OHM.
Yes.
To confirm.
OHM to confirm the traffic impact study.
After with any changes that are made by the applicant prior to the site plan review stage. Because if they change the flow through the parking lot, they're gonna need to change the traffic study.
So final.
Yeah.
Study.
Yeah.
Or TIS. Final.
I would support that motion if that was a motion.
Was.
Okay, so supported by Commissioner Reiser.
Is there anything we need to do about bikes or that'll just come bike?
Site plan stage.
That's required.
We'll get those bikes.
Okay.
I think the only other thing I want to say is, one, we have adopted a carbon neutrality resolution. And so at the site plan stage, we'd be very much interested in your, basically the goal is community-wide by 2030. And how your facility addresses carbon emissions and greenhouse gas emissions. And any other comments before?
Yes, who determines what counts as safe pedestrian access?
We started,
We do.
Okay,
we started when we see it.
We do, we'll pick it back up again in the site
And
plan.
also our engineers and planner. Okay. Any other comments? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hyde,
Yes.
Commissioner Human,
no,
Commissioner Reiser,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang, yes, Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
And Commissioner Culbertson.
Yes.
Motion's carried.
I do have a question about when you prompt them or when you plant the seed about carbon neutrality. Are you talking about solar? Are you talking about electric chargers? Are you talking about the kind of concretes? Are you talking about impervious structures? What kind of specific things are you suggesting that they try to incorporate?
Yeah, so carbon neutrality has to do with both operational and embodied emissions.
So recycle,
So electric heat,
Well,
solar.
it's taking, yeah, so I mean, the strategies are building efficiency first, electrification and renewables and low embodied
concrete, carbon
materials.
Just for clarification, so
Yes.
we've already been looking into, moving from gas RTUs and things like that to electric based on what I've heard in previous hearings. Based on our preliminary review, it's not very cost effective for this size of restaurant. So would the staff or the commission not support something if it wasn't a full electric building? If we had proof of a comparison of a Slim Chicken that's all electric, showing their electric bills, the cost of improvements in comparison to gas, like I would be prepared to show that. But I just, expending the money to design all of this and then for you to say it's not approved because we don't make it electric is something I'd like some feedback on.
Well, it'd be interesting, there are some resources, especially, there is a net zero McDonald's, and there are, and actually, all electric saves a lot on your, the makeup air that you need in the kitchen. So there are some savings to that. There are also the other, one is to be as efficient as possible, go as far electric as possible. And then the idea is the commitment to the renewables piece. So, and there are multiple ways of doing that, it being solar, and also there's a program called My Green Power, and there are other renewable power purchase programs.
There's, correct me if I'm wrong, Chairperson Culbertson, I think there's, you can go look at the federal statute, the IRA with rebates to help reduce the cost. But I mean, I would say, what would you do in 2035? And you gotta get ready.
I'm sure you guys don't like to do, but
And
interest
also
rates, cost of
investigate Michigan
materials.
Saves as a financing tool. They will, they're very interested in, especially food service and fast food, because of fast food establishments have the highest energy use per square foot of almost any building. So obviously there's a lot of it. And if you're interested there, I can give you some, AIA California has done a really nice video and so forth, all on electric food service.
Contact you.
But I guess I'll say as a board,
We can't,
remember, we can't, I don't wanna like,
we can encourage it.
I don't think it would be fair to say, you gotta go all electric, but right next door, we didn't make Panera go all electric, or did we?
We didn't make anybody.
No, but, right, but
But
so.
we're trying to really push that because
I mean,
that's a
that's part
really
of our
critical, and
policy,
that's
though.
a
I
part
agree.
of, what fast food restaurants are gonna have to deal with in the future too. So try and be, a little future proof, and, because this is a huge investment, right? So it needs to be an investment for multiple years, which pushes us back, where we need to have new construction being carbon neutral, so. All right.
Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you. And I would be interested in, some of the comparisons that you've done, by the way.
So we'll think creatively.
We'll share information, how's that?
Thank you.
How do we get there?
Yeah. That it is. All right, let's move on. Reports. Let's open up
Thank
my-
you, Commissioner Rice.
I did one, but
Yeah.
I got the date of our meeting wrong. I don't think it was July 11th, July 25th. I could submit an amended one. You got it.
Yes, it's the content that's important.
We forgive you.
Pardon?
We forgive you.
Okay, and thank you, Doug, for doing your report. That is the synopsis of,
That's the board report that's in your report.
Yeah, those are good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Doug.
yeah, thank you.
About time you did something good around here. No, really appreciate it.
Okay, OHM, do you have anything to report on?
No, we have nothing to report tonight.
And thank you, Doug, for yours. I wanted to highlight a couple of things, and those are, okay, that, thank you for the folks who, participated on Thursday, and thank you, and congratulations, Grandpa. Glad you.
Sorry I wasn't
you
here.
did.
That would have
Yes.
been, it would have been a good.
So I want to talk a little bit about next steps and looking at our schedule. We have 2 meetings in September, only 1 in October because of Indigenous Peoples' Day. So I was wondering if people might be available to do something Thursday, October 12th. And that would be you too, Doug. So that, and we could make it a focus again, and hopefully we're a little
Jackson
further
corridor?
along on Jackson Road.
I won't be able to, I'm sorry. No, my wife got a sweet design gig and
Hmm,
it's on top of her working, so I won't have time.
all right,
I am available.
you're available.
Oh,
I'm available too.
Could you do Zoom or no?
No, I'll be watching the kids.
Oh.
It's not just on the 12th, it's a range of days.
It's that whole week.
Because the 19th is, it could be a ZBA meeting, and we don't know yet.
What about
We
the
have
16th?
What?
The 16th, which is, a Monday.
Oh, a Monday
It's
night.
a Monday
Yeah,
that we're not here, but we
yeah, we could do
probably
that.
don't have time for.
What about the 16th?
I'm not.
You're not
I
here.
have another,
Oh, Doug's not here.
But Laura,
or it could be here. I'm not sure if she has a meeting. I have City of Wixom that night, another community. Somebody could.
Okay, why don't
Let's
we,
keep some continuity going.
yeah, why don't we say, let's find a date and I'll follow up with people about, because it might be a
Special
Wednesday or
meeting or
something.
just a meet? What's
It'd be a
the-
special meeting to work on Jackson Road because we only have 1 meeting in October and I know we keep having several public hearings and so forth. So trying to find time to sink our teeth into Jackson Road
Yeah, I think it
again.
needs to be, I want to keep it at a special meeting, so we're not trying to swoosh it into our regular meeting. But
No.
is this another joint meeting, just the PC? Okay.
What about October 5th? That's a Thursday.
Okay,
I'm open.
Doug?
And that would be in the evening.
Yes.
I have a,
Wave?
Western Washtenaw.
And I know we have ESTF
Advisory
too,
group on that evening.
but that could,
Oh,
we
is
could
it?
switch, that'd be easy enough to switch.
I don't have it on my calendar.
Oh, maybe
You
my
guys could do
calendar.
it without me, though. I have that Western Washtenaw
Yeah.
advisory group.
Let's put out a poll and come up with a date. I think that
Okay,
people want to do it, we just need to find one. Okay,
every one of us wants.
yeah,
You got it.
yeah, I think we want to have it.
You've been talking about planning since I started. You're not gonna miss
I
that.
think we're on a roll now, you don't need me.
Okay, and then just a reminder, we have our public hearing on the environmental sustainability climate action plan next at our next meeting. So if you.
On the 28th?
What's that?
On the 28th?
Yep, yeah, so make sure you have a chance to look at that, and I'll send out again the summary.
Thank you.
So you can, you can also use that. And I did notice that the waste and materials actions, the summary has the latest ones. The original plan, for some reason, didn't get the latest one. So I mean, it's not a huge difference, but there are some things in there. So the summary includes the latest. The other one is, on October 29th, not only are we gonna have the fire station open house, we're gonna have our Sustainable Scio first annual fair, or whatever we wanna call it. And we're gonna have early voting. So it's gonna be a pretty cool kind of fire station, township hall. We're gonna be in the utility bay for the sustainable fair, so we can have vehicles and electric,
Early voting for what?
things. The election,
For the November election?
October, it starts on October 28th, early voting. In
Is that a
Township
township hall
Hall.
or township hall?
I
Right,
mean,
right, right.
Township Hall. Yeah, so it'll be kind of a fun Sunday afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
What time on the 29th?
It's gonna be 1 to 4.
Wonderful.
Bring your kids.
Probably get a band or something.
You can actually bring your kids to
Volunteering?
something.
My daughter wanted to come tonight.
I'm just saying, that fire ask is a big ask. That's a big ask.
It is. All right,
Leave it at that.
so that's what I had, so we will plan on scheduling a special meeting then, so we can focus on Jacksonville. Other folks?
I'll just say I don't have any updates.
No updates?
I don't either.
No? LPC, DDA hasn't. All right, anything on the housing?
We met, sorry.
Our names.
We met on August 3rd.
Okay, so
But it was regarding transportation, not
okay,
housing.
not housing.
But I did forward the email that you sent me to Jan Vecchio, who's the mayor of Chelsea, just to get it through. But we had discussed the fact that this upcoming meeting was happening at the WCC
Okay.
regarding that. So we didn't really deal with housing. There was some discussion about housing, but it wasn't the meeting, it was mostly about transportation. And the fact that the Chelsea Community Foundation, the Chelsea Senior Citizen just got a few $1 million grant.
Oh, nice.
Mhm.
Also, there was a meeting with SEMCOG, which with a few folks from the township, and they're going to connect us with their transportation kind of planning and so forth, and have a kind of a follow-up discussion on what services and could we contract for some transportation planning overall, transportation planning services, which I think would be very beneficial as we're also looking at the Jackson Road corridor. I mean, we can do the planning and the uses and so forth, but, really looking
How do we
at what,
tame the traffic
yeah, right.
without choking it off?
So I'm just gonna say that another part of our, this group wants to do a Western Washtenaw area transportation study. And they're looking at funding sources to do that. It would cover multiple townships.
Now, how is that different than Watts, which is the Washtenaw Area Transportation Study?
Western one, Western.
Well,
Do they feel that Watts doesn't cover Western Washtenaw?
that didn't come up, just kind of look at my notes. Yeah, it did come up. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm still learning a lot from this group. I'll clarify that, but
Okay, because you'd hate to add another study if lots.
my sense is that the first study only went so far and they wanna hone in on
More closely
on
on the
the
western,
community.
and I can see that because there's a whole different transportation dynamic west. I mean, we're
'Cause-
right on the fringe.
Right, because the
actually.
conversation surrounds a lot of these communities contribute to WAVE for taking seniors around. Now, we use our millage dollars as a commercial corridor along Jackson Road, and we don't even touch that. So it's quite different than other communities like Chelsea and Dexter Township, Sylvan, Webster, et cetera. They pick up their seniors and disabled folks and transit. So.
Is there a way for Wave to report their route to Google Maps? I was trying to do that voluntarily, but apparently they only let the transit, report that stuff, so.
I don't know, I'll ask. You can just shoot me an email, what your question is, and I'll take that up.
Okay.
We're in the process of changing the website. I forwarded that email from that person from your sustainability group that rode the bus and all that. And so they're looking at the routing and at the interface and all that stuff right now to make it a lot more user friendly.
What about anything from road advisory?
We haven't met too much.
So I have a question at some point when it's.
Yeah.
So people want fast food. And fast foods are always gonna want these drive-throughs. And I'd rather there be a sit-down restaurant. What can we do, if anything, to encourage like DDA liquor licenses where there's a sit-down restaurant or something like that, Doug, or everybody else? You know what I mean? Like, if we had our druthers, what kind of restaurants would go in on these locations? Would they be the fast foods? Or would it be sit-down restaurants like a Carlisle Grill, or would it be little bistros or brew pubs, or like, what do we want? And how do we encourage that? Or does the market encourage it? Or does somebody who owns 1 million
I mean, I can't be the only one that likes a bistro.
What's that?
I can't be the only one in Scio Township that wants a
I agree, but
bistro.
how do we get more funky, quirky
yeah.
things? And I'm just asking rhetorically, because
Yeah.
I appreciate Jeff's concern about, God, another drive-through, another car dealership. I mean, I get that we're trying to change it up. So what can we do? Is liquor licenses? Because you can get a DDA license if the quotas are full, or like, how do we get our sales rep over there to pitch ideas like that? I mean, or development, consultant, so how do we, any thoughts on that, Doug?
Well, you can be explicit in your ordinance to prohibit drive-throughs in certain districts.
And require liquor licenses? I'm just kidding on that. I mean, but I figure you're not gonna have a drive-through if you've got a liquor license, because people are gonna go there.
And sit down.
Although
Hang out.
Yeah, like I was just saying, Chella's is in that plaza along Dan Hoy and Dexter Ann Arbor Road, and a new Italian restaurant is over there. And I'm like, well, what don't we have that people didn't want to come along Jackson Road?
Density.
Yeah, and I would encourage everyone to, if you didn't read the article in the Ann Arbor News on Sunday, I thought it was relatively thought-provoking. It was talking about the trouble they're having marketing the first floor retail in some of these mixed-use buildings.
In Ann Arbor?
Everywhere. The only place that's been successful in Ann Arbor is in the student areas.
Is that because people get everything delivered from Amazon now? Or why is that? Or people, they don't get out of their houses?
Well, who's gonna, I'm dealing with this in another community right now. Where they have a little downtown area that's a little mixed use, first floor retail, having a heck of a time getting anybody to sign leases in retail.
George.
And
In the yard,
I know it.
you know, in the yard, they said that they offered 2 years of free rent and they couldn't get anybody in there.
The retail chains don't wanna be there. The mom and pops, the retail traffic just isn't there. And I think I heard Jeff, you know, density is an issue. I mean, if you don't have a substantial amount of density. You know, I mean, so I live in city of Plymouth. When I first moved to Plymouth in 1998, the downtown used to be probably 80 to 90% retail.
Right,
It's all
Vibrant.
restaurants.
Yeah.
I mean, there's maybe one store in all of downtown Plymouth. And so it's, why is it happening that way? I don't, you know, retail has just made a turn. It's made a
Oh, for retail
Yeah.
in particular. Well,
So
yeah,
if
they're having a hard time
So-
competing with the e-commerce.
What are they
That makes
shopping at
sense.
big box stores or Targets or getting it online or FedEx
All of
or
those.
Amazon? I mean,
Probably all of those, yes.
I do it.
But
I
you
don't
were,
have Amazon. Yeah.
but are they
don't.
having problems finding restaurants to move in? Oh, okay.
I
You get a little
Just us.
synergy- You get a little synergy on the restaurant front. But
But I
now we're
use
talking
Amazon to
downtown
find
versus strip.
Yeah.
6 mile strip of Jackson, which is.
So just thinking, we've got this
The
PUD
session room, I'll
coming
just say
up.
this, let me just say this, John, session room, they don't have a problem people coming, they're coming from all over. I thought I was sitting next to a person that lived at least in Ann Arbor, this guy is way out in Shelby Township, and cause they like craft beer, and, you know, they're
But that's a
popular.
funky, quirky, old brick, used to be a garage kind of thing, so
yeah.
that's
But
got.
I'm just saying, people will come.
So we need to build them funky, is that what you just said?
No, but I'm just saying something
Wasn't that
interesting. You know, and hopefully the Sam Hill has a good run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that a developer would build the brewery, the craft beer
session
session
room.
room, thank you. I don't think a modern day developer would build the session, just my guess.
Not looking like that, but they would make it look like we required them to, but you could still put the same type of place there.
Holmes Brewery, I think is
Yep.
fantastic.
Yep, and that's
You got food
very
trucks
modern,
coming in.
very
You got lots of
industrial.
that. That's a hipster place to be.
Yeah, and parking is a total.
Yeah.
So those
It
are,
is,
those are
we need to
locals.
address that.
Those are locals. I think Tom Holmes is the owner of
Yeah.
Holmes Brewery, and Dave Fischera is the owner of Session Room. Dave Fischera's dad was the founder of Stucci's Ice Cream. And so Fischera's been in this town for years, and they invested in their town. They're local folks that invested in their town.
It's
You can't call that a
Tommy
funky
Kennedy.
building.
It's Tom Kennedy for Holmes.
Homes, yeah.
Just
So we're, I
clarification.
thought we could get a slim chickens.
Hey,
Well,
we're on record.
Yeah, but, you know, I think, but read that article if you have a chance to, or maybe.
Which
if you-
I don't have access to
It's,
it.
I didn't, cause I had it, we get
Are we done?
a paper, we just have to do minutes.
There's no minutes in the meeting. Sorry.
In the
There's no
packet? Yeah,
Minutes in the packet.
yeah, there were.
Yeah, there
It
were.
wasn't this morning.
I don't have them.
Oh, I downloaded it this
I
afternoon,
know,
it's in there.
that's my problem, is that I spend all
Can't
day
download
reviewing
it
what I
before
downloaded in
3,
the
the
morning.
day of.
You know, well, I do this morning, but
3 o'clock this afternoon?
I was still reviewing what I
Okay.
did done.
We do need, I feel like we need to do the minutes because it does
Yes.
hold things up if we do not.
Well,
We
not
do need
only
to
that,
do
but
the
it's
minutes,
required.
no doubt about it. Where did I do minutes?
I did just now download.
That's. Okay. I did,
No, it says pending. Did you find anything you needed changed?
yeah, I just wanted to, find it. Yeah, it's on page 10. Right before, I think we closed the public hearing. Yeah. But I'm not sure how, because that had
Close
to
to which
do,
public hearing? I'm sorry.
um,
Over here. Chair Coblin closed public
comment.
comment and call the vote. And that was under. That was for the drive-through, that was for Slim Chicken, right?
Yeah.
Postpone it. And
But technically, we shouldn't close it, right? Because we postponed it and we continued the.
well, we closed the public comment period. But we didn't close
The public hearing, so the comment
That's all
is
it says.
correct.
Yep, I think
Okay.
so.
That's fine, no
Move to
correction.
approve the minutes as written.
So I would support by riser to Hyde's motion to approve the minutes.
All right, any other comments? All right. Roll call, please.
Roll call on minutes.
No.
just-
We'll do a voice vote, sorry. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed.
Aye,
Good catch, John.
Okay,
I'm opposed.
okay.
Are
One
you
opposed,
opposed?
because he
Yes,
didn't get
I
a
couldn't-
chance
I
to
didn't
read
get
it.
them.
Oh, I totally get it.
Okay.
What? Are you messing with me or you? is
No.
it-
I'm serious, I can't read them.
Okay, so it's 5-1.
Yes.
Okay, my
Five to
bad.
one. Okay, all right, then,
Right.
motion to
Move to
adjourn?
adjourn.
What?
One thing, I'd like to add to my report, just real briefly.
Okay,
I saw some comments that came up about the videoing, how, changing a picture and stuff with cameras. And I'm obviously capable of doing this while trying to be the planning consultant at the same time. But I'm doing the best I can because there's some comments that came in about change the camera, do this, do that. I can do this as long as the township wants me to do it, but I would like maybe a mention to maybe the township manager that maybe we should get a dedicated person running the AV for the planning commission. So that, because I get kind of engrossed in what's
No, I
happening.
appreciate you trying to do.
yeah, multiple
I-
things.
I've said that before. I've wanted you up here with
Yeah, I
us.
kind of get engrossed with what's happening and I forget my camera's turned on and I leave some view that doesn't make any sense for like.
Makes sense.
For 30 minutes. And historically, I've always sat with you guys.
Yeah,
and
and,
helped
Let's
you
do
guys
it.
yeah, and that may have to be a budget item, but,
Well, you're the big cheese. You'd be the person to talk
to request that and see if there is a adequate budget.
I'd also be willing to take my term at the helm doing that, because I've done it at other meetings, whether it's parks and pathways or whether it's LPC to kind of help out, because they don't have, we don't have a luxury of you.
Right.
And Chris Bailey, our IT guy, is gonna try to put some, do some training to help people do that, like how do you zoom in the camera, how do you change the camera, how do you go in a closed session? How do you kick people you don't like off, all of it.
There are AI solutions that exist right now that manage switching cameras based on who's talking.
Zoom doesn't.
I'm not aware of that one, but there are,
You just have
Yeah,
speaker
that's-
view.
That's what I have zoomed on that, but that doesn't change the cameras.
Yeah, but
But what you're saying is
This
there
op-
AI.
and Zoom, everything, whatever you want it to do, it does it. I specify these all the time.
But you're muting
It
people.
allows people to share their screen and all that.
No, it doesn't do that. It doesn't
But it
manage
would do the
Zoom, it
cam-
manages the camera switch, which I thought is what.
That was
Well,
the main.
it's really, it's Zoom on and off, it's miking, and see if someone has their hand up. It's you're kind of
do it, and then when you're doing that, you're not paying attention to what somebody just said at the table. I appreciate your,
Yeah,
your.
all right,
Move to adjourn.
okay, all right. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
No.
We are adjourned at 10:27.
So Bob, you're a new grandpa?